This episode is brought to you in part by Hindsight. Hindsight is a new science fiction novel by author Matthew Keegan. Hindsight is a time travel adventure that Tim Truax at the Nerd Room calls a brilliant tapestry of time travel and history that will leave you questioning everything, impossible to put down. Find the links to Hindsight at talkstarwars.co.uk/hindsight and order your copy today. This episode is also brought to you by the Talk Star Wars Patreon community. If you'd like to support what we do now and help us expand our programming, head to patreon.com/talkstarwars and become a patron. In return, you'll get an exclusive daily podcast, a monthly newsletter, Facebook Live sessions, priority release podcasts, and monthly prize giveaways and a whole lot more. You'll also get access to our VIP-only Facebook group. This group contains a global community of Star Wars fans that have become dear friends. So head to patreon.com/talkstarwars today and become a TSW patron. This is Talk Star Wars, the official podcast of talkstarwars.co.uk. Hello everyone, welcome back to Talk Star Wars. I'm Mark.
I am Stephen.
I'm Rob.
And I'm Paul.
And that's a full house for episode 97 and 2 attempts at an intro.
Yeah, we've all lost our widget now.
No, we haven't lost our widget. Steve?
Mine's still where I left it.
You've been away for a while. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thank you. That was more upbeat.
It was very upbeat. Yeah, it's also
I'm good.
incredibly convincing.
Yeah.
I've been picking olives on a finca in Spain.
On a
Alright.
thinker?
A finca.
What, the statue?
No, not Epix. FINCA.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that was Epix, but Epix was a software company in the 80s that had that thinking man as their logo.
Oh, okay.
Ah, you
Learn
see?
something new, eh? Yeah.
Yeah.
Learn something new.
Yeah, they did all the Winter Games stuff.
Yeah, I think they did actually. Yeah, so I've been doing that and I've been doing other stuff and I'm back. Yay.
We're back, baby. Yeah, you missed
I'm sure the listeners will be thrilled.
By popular demand, because I had 3 tweets.
3?
Well,
That's,
Same-
that's adorable.
Same person.
Don't-
3 tweets.
Don't brag, Steve.
One of them was Jeremy, so I'm including that.
And one of them was
that's
a
fine.
retweet
Counts.
from you.
Yeah. One of them was
We're
Jeremy
not allowed
again.
to include RT.
Don't
Okay,
forget,
I had one
Dr.
tweet.
Felcher.
You had one tweet from
Everyone-
Jeremy. Yeah. You had
Yeah,
one
one
Reverend Felcher.
Felcher.
Which
How
I liked
inappropriate
and then
could you
retweeted.
get?
Yeah, we had Steve. We had somebody leave a comment on YouTube who now goes by the name Autobahn Kenobi, but at the time had a questionable YouTube handle, who said that you tell lies.
I know, that was a really awful tweet.
But
None
then-
of us tell lies. We have opinions. That's what the show's about, you silly boy.
And then the week after, he said, "You all have your moments, but Steve is hilarious."
Oh, then I love him.
There you go.
And I take everything back.
You are nothing if not consistent.
Exactly. And
Which means I've got
think
bad news for you,
people
Steve.
yeah, he might be a little bit on the scale there.
I never
But-
got that line. You're nothing if not blah, 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 blah. That means you're not whatever it is you're
That's a
referring
double
to.
negative,
That
isn't it?
actually means you're nothing.
No. It
It's
means
an
you're nothing if
oxymoron.
not. So if you're not consistent, you're nothing.
Then you're nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it means. That's fine.
Steve, you might as well log off.
No, don't do that. Oh, log
I
off.
didn't
Oh no,
realise
you can do that.
I've chastised him, but then he actually said something nice because you sent me that tweet and I was like, thanks for cheering me up. But I don't lie.
Sorry,
Well,
you can't make the show, Steve. But if it
You
helps,
can't
everybody
lie
thinks
about
you suck.
fiction.
You
Can you?
do.
That's
You don't.
your fiction.
You don't
can't
lie.
about it.
You don't lie. Sometimes you're factually incorrect, claiming I sent a tweet when it was an email. But
Oh well, you know what I
I
mean.
think that's what Autobahn Kenobi, aka Reverend Felcher, was getting at. But
What about a tweet and not an email?
no.
Oh, what was the whole thing about? I completely forget.
Anyway,
And the
Yeah.
rest of us
And
don't
why
care.
have you spelled cocoon as cock on?
Excellent.
Steve, behave.
Excellent.
Sorry.
Right, let's get into this. So we're going to start with some sad news. Well, it is a sad passing, but I think the way Ron has handled it is actually more of a celebration. So this past weekend, Solo, a Star Wars story director Ron Howard sadly lost his father, actor Rance Howard. Rance was a veteran of Hollywood, appearing in a number of Ron's movies, including Cocoon, Parenthood, Apollo 13. He was 89 years old, and Ron put out a tweet, I think it was Saturday morning. Paul, I was down with you, wasn't I, when this came out? He tweeted, "Clint and I have been blessed to be Rance Howard's sons. Today he passed at 89. He stood especially tall for his ability to balance ambition with great personal integrity. A Depression-era farm boy, his passion for acting changed the course of our family history. We love and miss you, Dad." What a wonderful, statement to make. It was really, really nice, really lovely. So
he had good innings. I know that's an
89
adage, but that's pretty good innings.
Did very well.
Yeah.
Well, who was he in Cock On?
I'm not familiar enough with that franchise to be able to answer that question, but I do recognise him. I've seen photographs recently, obviously, of
was he one
Ron
of the
with
three
him.
oldies that went to the planet?
I don't. No, I don't. Have you just spoiled the end of Cocoon, Steve?
Oh, I know he was.
They've had ages.
One that refused
Spoilers.
to go.
I'm not sure.
No, that was Red Buttons. No, it wasn't. That was.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It definitely wasn't Rance Howard.
Not my chocolate buttons.
But I've made a note here that I believe as a member of the extended Star Wars family, I'm sure Ron can count on our support at this difficult time having just lost his father. So obviously our thoughts and our compassion go out to the Howard family right now, and all that's left to say, as we always do on this show, is R.I.P. Rance Howard, you will be missed. Okay, right, let's get to our thank yous for this week. See how easy that was to do. A big thank you this week to Glenn Buckley and Will Garrow for the YouTube subscriptions. And thank you to Reese, Adam, Sheldon. I have to point out, Reese is so easy. There's only one Reese in our little group. Loads of Adams. So Adam, Sheldon and Rob, Wade, gentlemen, you do me a honour by increasing your pledges every month. It's a wonderfully generous thing you've done.
I'm not going to be upstaged by Sheldon.
I just wanted to say thank you very much for doing that, even if it was motivated by not wanting to be upstaged by another member of the community.
I'm slowly going to work it up over time. So
after this, can you tell me what they're paying out later, Mark? And I'll.
Yeah, Paul, trust me, you have nothing to worry about. All right. Okay, gentlemen, I sincerely thank you so much. They're earning you dividends, Paul. Here are 3 things that you've earned so far. 3 comments from YouTube. All right, I'm going to move into our little YouTube section, which has kind of become a thing without anybody really noticing. We had comments this week on a couple of videos. So Adam says, great show, guys. Good to hear Rob back, 5 stars.
Brawler.
5 stars just for you being back, Rob.
Yeah.
Don't bite the hand that feeds.
I think that's fair. I think that's totally reasonable.
What, 5 stars for you being back?
Yeah, I think it would be 6 if I was there for 2 in a row.
And for that outro as well, I think. That 10 or 15 minutes of music talk last week was really a lot of fun.
It was enjoyable, yeah.
I enjoyed that. So if we can keep the breaks that we have, if we can keep them clean, they might make their way onto the end of every show. Because it's all free content. We also have a comment from Diego Od. Paul, would you like to take Diego's comment this week?
It's a lot of words.
Rob, would you like to take Diego's comment this week?
Right. Oh, 2 hours ago. Really?
At the time, yeah.
Okay, from Diego. Great points. Love to hear this one. Great points.
Cool.
Love to hear this one. However, I have to say I'm not too into the erase the Jedi equals erase the Sith hypothesis. For one, Snoke apparently is not a Sith, but still wants to dominate the galaxy and use the Force. At the same time, we have Ahsoka, which is not a Jedi and use the Force. I hope this new trilogy is not just about changing definitions for the big audience. Jedi equals good guys and Sith equals bad guys. They actually don't even care about the religious theme. That's a reasonably valid point, isn't it?
Yeah, and we found out this week, and it's at the bottom of this week's show notes, that Snoke is certainly not a Sith. We've had it from Andy Serkis now, so we know a fact about Snoke that he is not a Sith. So yeah, I think what Diego's alluding to was one of the comments about how
It doesn't have to be black and white all the time, does it?
Yeah, but I don't know whether it was one of the comments I made about how if the Jedi remain dormant or disappear altogether, then there won't be anything there to threaten them. And if the Jedi do re-emerge, the Sith will rise up. And that's the constant struggle with balance. I'm not sure if that's what Diego's pointing at. Oh, Steve, you're back.
Yeah.
Lost you there for a second.
Little tip for everyone there. Don't press that little knobule on your earphone mic thing because it cuts the call.
Oh, good.
Gotcha.
It doesn't mute while you go and get a drink.
Actually. Gotcha. Well, it's a mute of sorts. It's just a very permanent,
a very definite one. Yeah. So it is an interesting observation what Diego's making there. That the redefining these elements in Star Wars. It would be a shame if that's all this trilogy did. But anyone else got any opinions on this matter?
I can see that. I mean, I've been sort of leaning recently towards the theme of the movie is going to be you can't solve new problems with old methods. Yeah, so it's going to be it's not you can't fix the Sith. You can't sort of combat the Sith with the Jedi because it's not Sith. It's something different. It's evolved. It's more what's the word? It's more nuanced, more refined, or whatever. There's going to be some difference. Obviously there's some difference to it because Andy Serkis has gone out of his way to make that distinction. So, I think the moral of the story is going to be, the way you have to have a new answer to a new question. You can't just answer this old question with a new question with the old answers. They just don't work anymore.
Let me just throw this into the mix as well. The lightsaber that Kylo sports, are these the weapons of the Sith and the Jedi, and does that indicate that he and we know that he's a Vader fanboy, does it indicate that he's trying to become a Sith even though he's working for Snoke and doing whatever Snoke wants?
Maybe that's where the sort of rift starts to happen is, he wants to go down one route, Snoke wants to go down another, and that's where the sort of schism starts to develop. And maybe that's where he's getting the dressing down at the beginning of the Last Jedi because of that, because he's, Snoke will make the point that it's holding him back, perhaps.
Yeah, and that's probably that is most likely it, isn't it? That adherence to these old ways, these old values. That's it's like the other, this duality we've been talking about. It's the other side of Luke's comment. It's time for the Jedi to end. It could be Snoke's argument. It's time for the Sith to end. It didn't work before. We've got to think bigger. We've got to think different. It's like Snoke is a bit like Steve Jobs. Think different and create a new evil paradigm. Oh, Diego's always good for a thoughtful, insightful comment. So thank you for that, Diego.
You never saw Snoke and Steve Jobs in the same room, did you?
This is true. But their appearances, Snoke might have been behind that curtain doing some of the
you put Snoke in a
stuff.
Black sweater, mate.
A New Balance.
Just one more thing. That's what it's going to be. Ray's going to turn up and she's going to go like, "You are wrong, and mate. I'm not having it. You can get out of the galaxy." And he just goes, "Well, you've told me." And as she's leaving, just one more thing, and then he locks her in that pain grip.
Pain grip. That's a nice way of putting it.
Credits. $1,000.
Dave Donovan also commented on YouTube this week, and his comments were in the same thread as Diego's, and he's aiming this comment at the commenters. He says, "You guys have some great takes on this stuff. You should really join up for the Talk Star Wars VIP group. It's only $2 a month, and we have an awesome gang on the VIP page, and you guys would be great additions. We'd love to have you join up." So he's out there doing the Lord's work for us. I really appreciate that, Dave. Thank you so much.
Other deities are available.
Oh, God. We're at that end of the year, aren't we, where we're supposed to do that sort of thing. I'm not going to. I refuse.
No, I don't blame you.
Yeah, I absolutely refuse.
I've got a good Jesus joke if you want.
Let's move on from Paul's. Let's get as far away from Paul's Jesus joke as possible. All right. Let's move into reviews. So Don't forget you can take advantage of our Ron Burgundy policy, which means whatever you write in a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts, we will read verbatim as long as it's clean. So if you want to promote something like a podcast or a blog, that's where to do it. Just as Matt Horton from Melbourne, Australia did this week. He sent us a review that says, fantastic listening and thought-provoking content. He says, good day, Mark, Paul, Rob and Stephen. Thanks for producing such a fantastic podcast. Been listening since late 2015 and I never miss a week's episodes. Makes an hour commute something to look forward to. If anyone's looking for a brilliant Star Wars podcast, look no further than TSW. Cheers from Down Under, Matt Horton, Melbourne, Australia. So, amazing. Thank you so much. I've already told Matt Keegan that he's got another Talk Star Wars listener in his part of the world. That actually makes 3, right? That we know of. AJ leaves the occasional review. So we've got 3 listeners on the other side of planet Earth.
Wow.
Something to celebrate. Now, I like the fact that Matt's been around since 2015 and has only just decided to make contact with us. We want more of that, Matt. We want your questions next, please, and voicemails. Get involved. Be good to hear from you.
He might have meant 8:15 last week.
This is true. Yeah, but he hasn't. If that's true, then he hasn't heard all the rough stuff, has he? So, but if this is 2015, then he has heard the rough stuff and he's still hanging in there. So thank you, Matt.
Before my intro, isn't it? Cracky.
No, you were on the early episodes, Paul.
Oh, was I?
Yeah, very early episodes you were on. No, in all seriousness, Matt, thank you so much. It's really good to hear from you, and we're always looking for emails and insight and comments. Well, you know how it works. You've been around for long enough, so we'd love to hear from you, mate. All right, should we move into listener comms? Rob, I'm going to let you take this first one.
All right.
So send your questions and comments via Twitter and Facebook, or you can send us email, attach an MP3, and we'll use it as a voicemail to talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com, just as Omer did this week.
Oh. Let's see. So Omer writes, morning, evening, happy lunchtime, whatever, everyone. I can't think of a good insult for Rob this time around, so if you could just go, like I've upset him, it'll save a load of time. Cheers, bud. He mustered a 1-up. Oh.
I'll do it.
Anyway, all right, that sounded a little aroused, personally, but...
Sorry, I meant to mute.
That's fine. Anyway, I've had a little thought about the prophecy of the Chosen One and stuff. I read a lot of mythology, and prophecies come up all the time. They're not normally as short as the Chosen One prophecy. Jake Lloyd and Hayden Christensen will nearly mess up everything, but then Dave Prowse will chuck Emperor Nescafe in a hole and everything will be pucker. It's really condensed and convenient. In mythology, prophecies tend to involve lots of smaller prophecies. Example, the big Norse tale from creation to Ragnarok and round again is called the Prophecy of the Oracle. It's huge and contains everything we know about the Norse gods. Within that are things like the Prophecy of Thor and the Prophecy of Twilight. These are smaller tales that make up the bigger one. What if the Prophecy of the Chosen One is a chapter of the Prophecy of the Force, maybe known as the Journal of the Wills? I'm not saying there's another Chosen One for every chapter. If there was, that prophecy wouldn't be called that. It would be called the Prophecy of the Balancer, or the Prophecy of someone being played by a small white boy grown to be voiced by Mufasa the Lion or something. Maybe Luke was looking for a new Chosen One based purely on that prophecy, thinking, well, the last one had a Messiah, this one must too. Then him and Ray read a book, Zimzalabim. Oh no, I'm awfully wrong. I'm a worse uncle than Uncle Jeff, who used to bounce me on his knee a bit too enthusiastically.
Oh dear.
Pretty sure there's a question or something in there, but I can't find it. I need some sleep. I must be painting a terrible picture of myself. Buy my shirts, Omer.
That's good. Breakdown. So,
why did he make fun of me? Oh, sorry. All right, I got you.
Our thoughts on the Chosen One prophecy being a part of the Journal of the Wheels. What do we think? Is this Journal of the Wheels thing, are we reading too much into it because it's a holdover from George's era?
I think so. I think they're simplifying it.
No.
I think it's going to factor in.
I think it's going to be reborn. Yes. Yeah.
Expanded upon.
So the books in Luke's tree cave on Octo could they be the journal? Could they be the Journal of the Wheels?
Perhaps.
There are 101 ways to cook. What they called those little things.
Yeah. He's quite remote. They're probably takeout menus.
The Pork Chef, it's called.
Yellow Pages. And...
Yeah. The big book. You need a lot. It's the whole galaxy.
I'm maybe because I want it to happen, but I kind of think we're going to be introduced to the Journal of the Wills in the next film.
I think they wouldn't have gone to such trouble to mention the Temple of the Wills in Rogue One if they were never planning on revisiting it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a strong indicator that they're not done with that. Certainly not that method of storytelling. Whether or not they end up, touching on it in saga films, or whether it turns up in Rebels or whatever, is anybody's guess. But I don't think they're done with the Wills by a long stretch.
So in the comic books at the moment, we've got in the Darth Vader comic book, Jocasta Nu, the old archive librarian from episode 2.
Not in the archive. It does not exist.
That's her. She features quite prominently in the current run, and she's returned to the Jedi Temple to get a list of Jedi hopeful names.
Overdue books. She's going to join up with the Inquisitors and form a library hit squad.
Yeah. Or I'm wondering...
People who...
I'm betting the farm on this. I'm putting a lot of faith in the story group because I'm actually not betting anything.
Let me just double check. Have you got a farm to bet?
I don't.
Moisture farm.
Farmville.
Posturing.
I have Farmville.
All right, that's fine.
She's returned to the Jedi Temple, and I'm wondering if she's going to take these books that make their way to Luke. Now, to me, that's the best use of a comic book ever, because it would be perfectly timed if this month those books turn up in her possession and make their way somehow to Luke over the course of decades, make their way to Luke on Ahch-To. Any chance of that happening, do you think, guys, or are the story group not quite up to that?
No,
I haven't seen the trailer yet. I've only heard a little bit of the latest 30-second teaser by accident when he says the darkness comes up and then the light to meet it. But I'm taking you're talking about the books in the cave because I've seen an image of that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you've seen the first trailer and they were in that, weren't they?
I mean, they're in there, aren't they? But not... Yeah. I mean, it all sounds feasible. It sounds quite good. I like the way they bring all the canon stuff together. It's quite interesting.
It's not as robust as I'd like it to be, though. Rob, what's your take on this?
Not exactly throwing any mysticism on it, are they?
How do you mean, mate?
About the resilience of canon. I mean, they've got an opportunity in the comic books now to set things up that pay off in The Last Jedi. Are they going to take it, or are these two things going to work independent of each other?
I think the independents, the two independent, not diverging paths, but the ones that aren't so heavily interconnected is really the only way that makes any kind of commercial sense.
That's true.
Because we come back to it every time, right? And we're absolutely right. Because we're great.
Required reading argument.
Required reading for a film is a no-no.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't, unless you're watching an adaptation, in which case, obviously, it makes sense to have read the original source material to be able to compare how it compares. Having said that, perfect example is Lord of the Rings, right? I haven't read Lord of the Rings. I found it, I tried to get into it, couldn't really get into it. If you like it, more power to you. But I just couldn't get on with it. But it didn't lose me anything to go and see the films, having not read the books, because they do a good job of telling the story.
Yes.
Now, if you were, if it was like introducing characters and you never heard from them again, and you think, well, hang on, what's going on with this bloke? And the answer is, oh well, if you'd read the book, you'd know who that was. That's not good enough.
It's the Tommy Bombadil of it all.
Yeah, and I mean that's, I think he was he cut or.
Yeah, he was
something. Yeah, but what I mean is
Tom Bombadil.
Tom, sorry.
He's not. He's not in the movie, so
should have been though.
It does. Yeah, but that's fine. But it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's the argument, though, Steve. He didn't. If he didn't service the story for the film, if it would have been confusing to have a character wander on and go, "Look at me, I'm great," and half the audience goes, "Yay," and the other half go, "What's going on?"
Yeah, no, that is true.
That is the problem.
It was a self-contained little piece of the book that.
Yeah, here's an example. Here's an example from Star Wars canon, right? Dr. Evazan and Walrus Man, Ponda Baba. Thank you. Sorry, I spaced for a moment on that one. They're in Rogue One. I personally think it's a daft cameo, but they're in Rogue One as a cameo. It doesn't lose you anything in the movie to not know who they are. It's a little bit confusing if you don't, because obviously it means you've never seen A New Hope. But maybe you're tackling the viewing order in chronological order, in which case you're about to meet A New Hope in the next movie. But the point is, Dr. Evazan and Ponda Baba you don't deprive yourself of anything from the story because you see them and you don't know who they are. And that's, all this stuff needs to do that. It has to be sufficiently self-contained that it doesn't lose you anything to not know what it is. It's just a nice piece of extra if you do. It's this kind of weird. It's arrogance is the wrong word, but it is it's kind of born out of the same thing. It's like the hardcore fans like assume it's made for them, and it's not.
But it can do both.
Sure,
if it was done well, and
but
I think in this instance it would be done well because you'd be telling a self-contained story in the books. The films wouldn't rely on it to make sense. Luke's got these books, where'd they come from? But for the hardcore fans who should be given something extra, can be watching that film and think, oh, I know how he got those because I've just read it this month. Brilliant.
Which is fine. That's fine, but you don't have to. It's not essential to the story. If it's not essential to the story to know it, then it doesn't matter, and that's fine. That's a perfectly good kind of narrative device. It's purely, that has to be the balance. It can't be, we'll only put in stuff that is going to work for deep cut fans, because then you don't get casual fans going for second and third viewings. You just don't.
Last year it was my shuttle Tidarium theory, wasn't it, for Rogue One?
Yeah.
I was thinking, they're going to get the shuttle Tidarium, and that's why the codes rolled. That
would have been great.
Would have really worked, because that's a bit like the Ponda Baba thing, where if you look at that cameo from the other side as somebody that's watching Rogue One first, then they watch A New Hope, or they watch Return of the Jedi later, they're going to go, that's a callback to that other film that was made decades later. And it's kind of cute, and it kind of works.
Perfect.
And they didn't take advantage of it. And I think it's such a missed opportunity.
That one is a shame. I agree. I really would have liked to see that, because as soon as you mentioned it, I was like, oh, that's awesome. And again, it doesn't detract from the story to not know what that means, not understand the significance of that. It's just one of those things that hardcore fans kind of can't see. What's the expression? Can't see the weeds for the trees or something.
I can't see the woods for the trees.
I was going to say, you wouldn't be able to, if he's looking at the trees, you're not interested in the weeds, are you? Because they're prettier. Yeah. But that metaphor got away from me. But I know what I meant. And gladly you did too. But you can't see you can't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
Because you're, as a hardcore fan,
too close to
they've already got you. So they don't need to, with the greatest of love, they don't need to do all that deep cut stuff, because they've got you, because you're a hardcore fan.
Yeah,
which is going to see the movie multiple times,
because it shows.
In my case, it's I can't see the daylight through the knees.
Paul,
why is it a shame, Mark?
I think it's a shame. It's because they don't need to do it. I think it's a shame because it shows that the films aren't being made by people as invested in. Obviously, clearly they're invested in the projects, don't get me wrong, but they're not invested in that part of the story, those elements of canon, the way we are. So we can see these things and think, that would really work well. That's what I thought the story group were doing.
Get 14% of your budget, because
that's what it comes down to.
You only get 10% of the people coming to see it that you would otherwise. It's just the reality of it. These things cost money.
No, I don't agree. I don't agree. Not in terms of, I mean, it's a great point you're making, and I can see what applies to the comment that you're making. But with something like this, they're telling this comic book story now anyway. So all you need to do is say, let's make Jocasta Nu's story, her trip to the Jedi Archive, the retrieval of these books. She wants to get them away from the Sith and then put them somewhere else, and they end up in Luke's possession.
That's cool.
That doesn't affect the movie. And the thing with the shuttle Tidarium, that doesn't. These are the things. To my mind, this is my expectation of the story group. This is what they should be doing. They should be sitting with a filmmaker like Ryan, and he says, "This is everything I want to do. We're going to start here. We're going to end there." And they say, "All right, if you drop that along the way, it's all goodwill stuff.
Right?
We'll make sure the storytellers over on the comic books, they'll hit this beat, and that'll tie neatly into your story there. These guys over here in this game, they'll hit that beat, and that ties into your story over there." That's what I thought the story group were going to do. I didn't think they were just there directing traffic.
Yeah, I can see the appeal of that. And so, to be clear, I'm not kind of poo-pooing the idea of the Jocasta Nu story tying into Last Jedi at all. And in fact, it would be nice if it did. But all I'm saying is, it's just something that we have to keep in mind when we're talking about these things that would be awesome. there's a balance to be struck between this stuff, and yeah, I think we are saying the same thing ultimately.
Yes.
Yeah, but I just it's important to remember that, because I'm not just talking to the people on the call. I'm talking to the people listening in the audience as well. It's don't see all these lovely ideas that you have in your head not being realized as some sort of slight. It's just that's not then not the movies aren't being made just to please the kind of the vocal minority.
It's not boxing, not an exercise in box ticking.
Yeah, and actually you wouldn't want them to be.
No,
because then they'd be incredibly complex, deep cuts that would be very hard to. They wouldn't be accessible. They wouldn't be popcorn movies. They'd be almost like art house pieces.
Yeah.
If you get too deep down that route, and they wouldn't stand up as much. They probably wouldn't date as well, and they just wouldn't be. They wouldn't have the kind of pop culture smash hit phenomenon. You wouldn't get as many ultimately, and the budgets would be lower just because there wouldn't be as much of a return predicted and things like that. And it would, the overall kind of the films would suffer for it, the universe would suffer for it, because if you get disenfranchised kind of fandom, then they don't. The other thing as well is like these connected materials, they want to hook the casuals in as well on those things, because ultimately the more casuals have. The more casual fans who have their sort of an additional method of connected storytelling,
another medium.
It's one more person who might become a hardcore fan. Yeah, and they ultimately absolutely want that.
Yeah, of course.
The idea that businesses don't act in the interest of with the interest of consumers in mind is just, it doesn't stand up to scrutiny, because they want your money.
Yeah,
that's how it works. If they want to succeed, they know, and people have paid a lot of money to figure this out. They know that they need to. They need to impress people, and they need to retain them, because there's so much stuff nowadays to entertain you with. If one thing doesn't do it for you, that they can't afford for you to lose interest for a second, because if you do, you might just jump onto something else and never look back.
Yeah, and that's some of that's happened to me with the comic books. I've picked up certain titles within the Star Wars canon and thought, that just doesn't feel like Star Wars to me. And the things that do feel like Star Wars to me, I've stuck with. Yeah, and I'm fiercely dedicated to.
But you imagine if you'd found, if you'd read a few of the comics and you were just like, it's not really gelling for me, and then you just didn't have time to pick up something else, they've lost you as a reader because of that experience. So they don't want that. They want to serve as many people as possible.
All right, so circling back to Omer's question, the whole concept of the prophecy of the chosen one being a part of the Journal of the Wheels. Yeah, I think he might be on. I think he might be onto something there.
I think he's right. Yeah, I think it's absolutely the case.
And I do think that within that might be something that Luke misinterpreted to mean Ben, when it actually meant Rey.
Maybe, or maybe
I honestly believe that.
Way.
Honestly,
maybe he took it in. Yeah, I mean, that's possible. It's also possible that he was right. That a particular thing referred to Ben, but he took it in a different. He took it in a different context to what it ends up being.
Yeah.
No, much in the same way as Anakin brought balance to the Force by, Papa Palpatine.
Papa Palpatino.
Yeah, so he kind of thinned out the Jedi ranks, but also took out Palpatine later on. In the same way, Luke might have an idea of how Ben, fulfills a particular prophecy that might be aimed at him, but actually he does it in a completely different way that's still interpretable in the same.
Which is the Anakin of it all, right?
Yeah, that's a possibility. It might also be that it's right. And it might also be there's no prophecy, that it's just, that he comes to it just kind of, just through. It might be wishful thinking on his part, nothing to do with anything he's read.
True. Very true.
So who knows? But I think that Omer's right that it almost has to be, if those books are the Journal of the Wheels, it has to be mentioned in there. It just has to be.
Yeah. I think he's onto something without a doubt. All right, let's move on to Dave's question. I'll take this one, and Steve, I'll let you get Ian's question.
All right.
Does that work for you? Okay. So Dave says, "Hey lads, disavow me of this notion, please. I'm betting the house that we get a Force Ghost Yoda in The Last Jedi. And we know Luke is reluctant / refusing to train Rey. Remember the scene in Empire when Luke has that moment of shock and awe when he realises Yoda is the Jedi Master he's looking for, and suddenly Yoda is talking to Obi-Wan's Force Ghost, talking over Luke's head, debating why he can't be trained. Love that scene. What if Yoda appears to Luke and Rey, and it's flip or inverse of that Empire scene? Rey is shocked. What's this little blue ghost? And while that's happening, Yoda is laying down the law with Luke, saying he must train Rey. He is the last Jedi. It's his responsibility. Yoda reminds him that he told him to pass on what he has learned, and he could be poking him with his Force Ghost walking stick whilst he's giving him a dressing down and all. Could this be the thing that makes Luke train Rey? He seems dead set against it to begin with, so something has to happen to change his mind. This is fanboy headcanon, but it's something I could see happening. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts. May the Force be with you, Dave. So will it be Luke? Will it be Yoda that convinces Luke to train Rey in The Last Jedi, based on what Dave pointed out there? Really?
I hope not. It's a really... I'm all for seeing Force Ghost Yoda, and I think we will. But I want to see him in a different capacity. I don't want to see any... there's already going to be people looking to nitpick and say it's an Empire knockoff. It's too easy. It's too easy.
Okay.
It's easy ammunition for something like that. It's just, I don't want to see it. I'd very happy to see him turn up in the film. Very happy to see him involved in the training stuff. But I don't want to see him be I wasn't going to do it, but this ghostly Jedi told me to. It's like, oh, for goodness sake! It's like I'd much rather my kind of impression of how I'd like to see Luke decide to train Rey is when he realizes how similar they are. When she tells him his story, her story up until that point that she remembers. I want that to be when he realizes she's just trying to find her place in the universe. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't that much different when I was her age. And I want it to be they bond over common grounds rather than,
I've got a slightly different take on it. I think there might be more fear that motivates Luke into training her. But Steve, let's get your take on this Yoda thing, because I know you're very concerned about the similarities to Empire.
Well, I think it sounds like an amazing scene if it hadn't been done already, like everyone's saying. You can't keep rehashing. You've already got the guerrilla walkers walking across a plain towards, I'm assuming, a rebel base, something like
Resistance, Steve, totally different.
Yeah, well, there you go. But it would just be lazy filmmaking for me. I mean, I'd love to see Yoda as a Force Ghost, but not in that capacity, in the exact identical scenario that Luke was in.
Well, it wouldn't be identical, I don't think. It would have to be slightly different. I don't want him anywhere near that transaction. I want him to turn up later on, and actually I want him to sort of be busting Luke's chops when Luke's trying to train her. Chastising him for missing a bit out of the story or something.
Because I want that to be on, and I heard that. I didn't see it, but I heard the 30-second little teaser from last week.
Yeah.
Isn't the clincher going to be when Rey says to Luke about you about losing Kylo and you won't lose me?
Yeah, what she says, Kylo failed you, I won't.
Yeah.
And that's kind of interesting. I suspect that this whole thing, what I meant earlier about, I think fear is probably going to motivate Luke, is that he seems to be helping guide Rey on some sort of Force vision. She's definitely reaching out to connect with the Force. It's that whole dialogue about
something else.
Yeah, what do you see? I see the dark, the light, and there's something else, and it's calling to me, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
We've got an item in the news about that later. I'm going to leave that because it's behind the spoiler wall.
All right.
But I think that Luke's going to be... I think what we've already seen is Luke say, the last time I felt power this raw, or I wasn't afraid of it enough before, I am afraid now. I think he's going to be terrified by Rey's capacity. And what I think will bring him around to want to train her is, it's better I teach this kid how to use her ability than to let her go out there into the world with basically like a loaded weapon with no instruction.
Yeah.
So it's better for him to keep her close and educate her, train her how to control her ability, rather than to cut her loose, because she could be potential for Snoke to get his claws into and develop her into something less positive. Paul, I just noticed you're back. What do you think of this? What do you think of Yoda's involvement in encouraging Luke to train Rey? Do you think that's misuse of Yoda, or do you think that's a good idea?
It's not the worst idea in the world. I wouldn't be I wouldn't be remotely surprised if we see or hear something.
Yeah.
I don't know about Force ghosts and so on, but we already heard, obviously, the voices and whatever in the Force vision, for want of a better word. I'm not going to say whether it was a foresight or a historical vision or whatever it may well be. You may well get something like that, but I think he might talk to her first.
Yeah.
To be honest.
I did think
that could be cool, like him trying to sort of almost coach her into talking him into
Master
it.
Luke, you will.
Yeah,
I meant more like not tricking him, but sort of, you're never going to get to him, never going to get him to say yes by doing that. He's too stubborn. This is what you want. This is how you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Almost kind of coaching her into that role. That I could get on board with, because it's different. It's not just, it's a different, a proper different take on something we've seen, a formula we've seen before.
To give you a little peek behind the curtain, this is Dave's second question this week. His first email was along the same sort of lines, so I've laid this one over the top of it because it kind of supersedes his previous question.
Oh, fair enough. Okay.
So rather than have both, because this one sort of supersedes it.
This one's not in the notes.
The previous one isn't in the notes, but it's very, very similar to this.
Okay.
And at the time, I'd started thinking about Dave's question, and I thought, what if Rey can see Yoda and interact with Yoda, and Luke can't? And would that be an interesting dynamic in the film? Because
why would he suddenly not be able to interact with Yoda?
that's the question.
Okay,
That would be the question.
Faith.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it could be a lack of faith. It could be that he's disconnected himself in some way. We've speculated he might have gone. So that, and to me, I really like the idea that one, it is an echo of the scene in Empire where Luke doesn't see Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
But he can see, and it's never been clear to me whether he hears Obi-Wan in that scene in Empire. Because it's almost like he's picking up on what Obi-Wan's saying contextually through Yoda's reactions. I think there's probably a good argument to say that he can hear Obi-Wan, because he has heard him before.
There is a moment where he reacts to what Ben said, or the fact that Ben's talking at the very, very beginning when he has a realization that conversation's happening. It's like he's reacting to what's actually been said.
Yeah, but I like the idea that there are two people in a room and there's a third disembodied presence, and one can access it and one can't. And the frustration. Now, I think it would be unfair to put Rey in a position where she couldn't.
Why not
interact? Because it puts her on the back foot a little bit. But
as a trainee, do you not think that's fair?
Yeah, but if you want to level her up and make her powerful and give her an advantage over Luke, that's a nice way of doing it. Is give her access to Yoda and her say, "Can you hear that?" And
does she need an advantage over Luke?
Not necessarily an advantage as in the upper hand, but giving her something that shows him the promise. We're getting that flavour from that moment we spoke about in the recent TV spot of resist it, Rey, and the previous line of I wasn't afraid enough before, I am now. It would be a version of that where he can see her interacting with long dead Jedi, people that he's disconnected from for whatever reason, and it might up her game a little bit in his eyes. Do you know what I mean? He might look at her and think, oh, there's something more going on here, and she can't. She thinks he sees the blue ghost of Yoda and can interact with Yoda, and he can't. That would be an interesting dynamic to me. I can't think of a practical application because of the story of The Last Jedi, so I can't think of a practical application for it in that. But it does seem to me to be an interesting way to play with those expectations and also play with that echo, the Empire echo. Which I don't necessarily want to see. But I do think we'll see Yoda. and we've already heard Yoda in The Force Awakens, so there's definitely a connection there between Rey and the Force Ghost. So if he does show up, it's bound to be all three of them. But I did kind of like the idea that maybe one of them wouldn't be able to see it. And I do like the idea of Luke sort of being disconnected from all that stuff for whatever reason. Maybe he's on the Jedi equivalent of the naughty step.
It'd be cool if he reveals himself to Kylo, yeah.
Maybe she can only hear it when she's holding the lightsaber.
Through the Kylo.
That might work. That might work. Because that's how she was able to sort of, take in the vision in the first place. Otherwise, she only heard the sort of vague, disembodied voice.
That's a great idea.
If she had,
I like the idea of
like that would work.
It's like a lightning rod.
But more.
Sorry, Paul.
So I like the idea of Luke being made aware that Kylo could see Yoda, giving a glimpse that there is good inside. There's a crack of light coming through almost.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting point as well.
Well, so he sort of says like, you can still see Yoda. That's interesting.
And when Kylo turns up on Octo, if he does in fact turn up on Octo, I wonder if...
Are we 100% convinced it's happening? Or?
I'm 100%... I'm convinced it's happening because of the reports of the conflict on that location of the cloaked figures and things like that. So I'm sure that was filmed intentionally, but I haven't heard anything concrete beyond that about any of that footage appearing anywhere or being shown to anyone or any stills being available. It's all just reports from the set of that was what was being filmed.
Did they ever establish what that big puppet was?
Yeah,
remember that big puppet?
It's the sea monster. It looks like E.T., right?
Yeah, but why would the sea monster have legs?
I think they're more like flippers.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if it might be because I haven't had a sense of scale on the caretakers.
Right. Yeah, I think
I was wondering if it might be like
caretakers are like Jawa size, I think. But
are they?
That big sea beast thing? It's in a. I think it's in a one of those ancillary books, like it's like a Where's Waldo type thing where you're looking through all the pictures trying to find something, and it's in there. It's like a kid's reference book for The Last Jedi, and there's a picture of that sea beast in there. There was a rumour that Rey would have to face that thing in.
And she dives in.
Yeah, that might be where she dives in. Yeah. All right.
I wonder if she's rescuing Luke.
Yeah, it could be rescuing Luke, or it could be that he said you have to go in there, whatever you see. It might that gets a little bit too heavy.
Oh, no.
Harry Potter, whatever's at the bottom of that thing, you need to go and get, and that's.
Is that just like the scene in Empire again? When he sends Luke into the cave.
Yeah, well, it's like a Jedi trial, isn't it? So
I guess.
I mean, he goes in.
Right. That makes sense.
He goes in, and it's a vision for Luke. But with her, it's going to be if it's a trial, it could be she has to face. Yeah. It's the same thing, face your fear, but for her, it's going up against some big, ugly underwater monster.
To be fair, it could be going underwater, being as she's grown up on Jakku.
Yeah. She's like, I hate water. It's all wet.
What is
this
everywhere.
Stuff? What is it? Yeah, what is this stuff around?
I hate water. I hate getting wet.
Why can I swim?
I hate you.
Yeah. Willy. All right.
Yeah, it would be Willy, yeah.
I hate that too.
Dave, thank you for your Yoda-shaped question. I'm very excited to see the little master appear in this movie, and I'm thoroughly convinced that we will see him. I'm just not entirely sure how. Yeah, well, maybe a combo. Probably a bit like Obi-Wan. So maybe we'll hear him at first, and then there'll be slight appearances later on in the film, but. It's going to be cool. Right, Steve, did you want to take Ian Jolliffe's question?
Sure. Hi, chaps. Two quick interconnected questions. Firstly, favourite Star Wars sound in any movie. Secondly, favourite occurrence of said sound. And Ian's favourite Star Wars sound is TIE Fighters, and favourite occurrence is in Rogue One during the beautiful My Father Would Be Proud track. The camera pans from the mushroom cloud explosion on Scarif to the shuttle and ties heading towards the Rebel cruiser. Beautiful contrast between the engines and violins. I must watch that because that sounds. I can remember it, but I can't remember the music.
Number one's
All the
easy.
sounds.
Number two, mine's a dead end.
Yeah. Great to hear you. All the best, Ian Jolliffe. So, favourite sound and its best use. I take it we can't have music because that would be
a total cop out.
It would be. You'd be loopholing like a crazy Canadian. But
Favourite sound's easy, but mine's only got one instance.
Go on, Paul. What is it?
It's the sonic explosions when Jango Fett chase.
They're awesome.
Good call.
Oh, yeah, the mines.
Everybody in the cinema looked at each other and went, that was amazing.
That was Ben Burt at his very best. That was great concept.
Do number one first then. Well, mine would be the sound of the pod race with the
Yeah, that's great.
That is pretty cool.
Obviously, we got two prequel hits straight away.
Oh, yeah, I know. But we always said the sound and the music, bring those from the brink. Well, I always said it.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you don't drag us down with you and throw me on those tracks. Rob, your favourite Star Wars sound, and then we'll do a round where we talk about the occurrences.
Probably the clashing lightsabers, and the best bit is the fighting Jedi when if you will not turn to the dark side, then perhaps she will.
Oh, yeah.
Never! And just that whole exchange with all the music kind of welling up behind it, but the lightsabers just clashing, and then it's the sort of these just pounding away at Vader's
That's the
wrist.
third mention of that scene in as many episodes of this podcast.
Amazing scene.
Yeah, so somebody's got a spreadsheet somewhere and they're tracking these things, I'm sure. That would be...
Has it got a number 3 on it?
That must be that must be by definition now our favourite Star Wars moment because it's been mentioned 3 times.
It's so good. If it's by different people, then yes. But if it's by me over and over again, then that's different.
It was me the first week. Katie last week wrote in with that scene.
Oh,
and then you mentioned it this week. My favourite sound is also the lightsaber. I just love the lightsaber sound. I think it's iconic. Best use for me is also in Jedi, and it's when the lightsaber it's the green lightsaber snap into life in Vader's hand when he says, I see you constructed your new weapon, and that thing lights up faster than any lightsaber I've seen ignited in. It doesn't do the slow sort of extend to full length. It's just that snaps right out into full tilt boogie straight away, and it's got a really distinctive sound. Luke's lightsaber.
Not what I thought you were going to say, to be honest.
Really?
I thought you were going to say. It's another one that's just occurred to me as a good lightsaber noise. Is when he ignites it on Endor, when it's so quiet. Everything else is so quiet because the speeder bike's on its way, but it's just rounded a corner.
That's a good one.
It's wonderful.
Oh, that's a good one, Rob. I won't nick it. Are you going to say that?
I literally just did, Steve.
Yeah,
let's do another. Let's go around again.
Steve, I'm never going to hold it against you for saying I'm great. It's never going to happen.
I'm talking about the speeder bikes. You've reminded me.
Yeah, they're awesome as well.
Yeah.
Woo, you know the howl.
Oh yeah.
As they go around the trees and stuff.
Yeah, that's fantastic noise.
Proper cool.
But trouble is with all those sounds, apart from the lightsaber, there's only one occurrence.
Yeah. Well, here's a
question
question,
too,
right? What about ones where it's only got a one shot? Because I've just thought of one that basically every bit of sound design on Best Bin in the Cloud City in the carbon freezing chamber during the lightsaber battle. Because it's also spooky and everything's like clanking and noises are sort of hissing and things like that. And it's
I've got a really good
tense.
One. This is a good one as well. It's a great sound, also in Best Bin, and it's another one of those ones where it's a one shot use of this sound, and it's Boba Fett revealing himself, sort of steps out from behind that.
Oh, that's with the doors sort of hissing open.
It's what a Foley artist calls building the character's presence with the sound design. So it's it's like jangling, creaking leather and all that sort of stuff as he walks up next to Darth Vader. That sound is just... he sounds like a gunslinger. I think you could probably have lifted that audio out of an old Western, where it's the guy just sort of standing up slowly and like walking these little spurs jangling all the way to wherever he's going. That's a great moment. Paul, you and Steve, do you want to do another? Well, Steve, you did the speeder bike. Honourable mention, Paul?
Not beyond my sonic boom thing.
Really? Not even an Houtini? No love for the Houtini?
No, that's a different kind of love, mate.
Yeah,
that's atmospheric.
Here comes the window cleaner.
Yeah.
Go on, the window cleaner.
They're all good offers, I think. I'm going to stick with my Jedi lightsaber snap, though. That's going to be my final answer. Excellent stuff. Thank you, Ian, and thank you for including your options as well. And he did also follow up this, before anyone pulls him up on it, he did follow up the email with a correction that the actual track name is Your Father Would Be Proud, not My Father Would Be Proud. And I forgot to correct it in the show.
It's the dialogue line that he gives her on the beach, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, but the music at that time, I believe, that the track playing on Edu is Your Father Would Be Proud, right?
Oh, I just thought of one.
Is that right?
Sorry. I just.
Oh, no, it's right. Yeah, the Carapans from the Mushroom Cloud. Yes, so Your Father Would Be Proud, yeah.
I got an honourable mention.
Go on, Paul.
One of the best sounds is, it's a whole jumble of sounds, actually. It's the Imperial Probe Droid.
Oh, yeah, it's great. Is that called a Viper droid? I think I might have just learnt today in the Facebook Live.
Possibly. Not sure.
Yeah, I used it on the intro of the Kessel Run when I was doing the Kessel Run daily podcast.
Oh, okay.
And that was that is really, really cool. Really, really cool sound. And again, it's been used once again since, isn't it, in Rogue One?
Yes.
Flies through the street on Jeddah.
Yes.
Very cool indeed. Ian, thank you so much. I love those sorts of questions. I was hoping to get one from Katie this week.
Yeah, where's Katie's moment?
Yeah, I didn't. I don't. Let's just see if it came in on Twitter since we've been recording, because
if she's done something, she hasn't tagged me in it either. So
sometimes it comes through as
she don't like you, mate.
Message.
No, I mean that's fair enough. We've all got a reason.
She smelled of soup.
No, she was on the Facebook Live.
Also fair.
This and accurate. I've been in his presence. It does smell like soup. Very delicious soup. Yeah. Indeed. Yeah. All right, we'll pick up with Katie next week. I think I know where her question's going because I heard Tumbling Saber. So
okay.
I've had some time to prep. Great episode of Tumbling Saber this week as well. I recommend it. Right, let's go into our break, and when we come back, we're going to step into Casey's Corner. So we will be back momentarily. If you'd like to support what we do here at Talk Star Wars, then head to patreon.com/Talk Star Wars and become a patron. Your support will help us as we expand our programming to include further shows, and in return, you'll get access to an exclusive VIP Facebook group, a monthly prize draw, weekly Facebook Live sessions, priority release podcasts, an exclusive daily podcast, and a whole lot more. Head to patreon.com/Talk Star Wars today and become a TSW patron.
And we're back. So you've just heard about how you can become part of the TSW Patreon program, just like Casey did. And as is customary, after we hear about the Patreon scheme, it's time to hear from somebody. So this is Casey's Corner, and Casey writes thusly. Hello again. We all know that one of the biggest complaints about The Force Awakens was how closely it mirrored the plot of A New Hope. While I noticed these similarities while watching it, I still loved the movie and I didn't mind giving them a pass for it. That's perfectly sensible. Given the backlash about how the prequels were so different from the OT, it made sense to me that Disney would follow the original formula so closely, and I figured once they eased fans into the new trilogy with that one, they'd be a little more willing to branch out with the next two movies. From everything I've seen from The Last Jedi so far, it's shaping up to be even more similar to The Empire Strikes Back than the last one was to A New Hope. It seems to start with the new First Order attacking a Resistance base using AT-AT type vehicles, while the Resistance defends the base with ships that seem to skim over the ground more than fly. Rey trains with a Jedi Master who's been in isolation and finds him to be much different than she expected. Rey will have to face off against Kylo, who will try to tempt her to the dark side. If you change the names of all of those, it would perfectly describe the plot of Empire Strikes Back as well. While I think I'd still like it, I'd rather not see this movie be a carbon copy of a previous movie. Do you guys think it will be as similar as it seems from the trailers? If so, do you think it will have an impact on how much you enjoy the movie? P.S. Feel free to quit using the name Casey's Corner if you want, since it seems to be making everyone feel guilty about Connor. I certainly don't want to make it sound like I'm trying to replace him. Oh, bless.
Where is Connor?
In the VIP
Where is
group.
Connor? He's in the VIP group, still around. Just hasn't had a chance to write in as much recently.
He's been very, very busy.
We still love him. And Casey, I know you're listening. Don't worry about it. I'm busting your chops. It's what I do. Did you want me to? There's a bit that's marked in red.
Yeah, no, that's just for Paul.
That's just for Paul. All right, fine. So the question is, are we being misled by the similarities between Empire and Last Jedi? If it is the same, how are we going to feel about it?
Yes and yes. There you go.
What?
You're gonna
Yes,
feel yes.
yes, it's similar to The Empire Strikes Back.
And yes, you're going to feel about
this
it.
is how you feel about it, yes.
No, yes, it's going to have an impact on how much I enjoy the movie.
Pillock.
No, yes, it's going to be similar. And yes, it's going to have an impact on how I enjoy the movie, like the first one did, if it is indeed the case.
Microphone
But
discipline,
it might
Stephen.
not be. Do what now, sausage?
Mike, you're sounding...
What's wrong with it?
Well, you sound like you're in the other room shouting.
Oh, well, I've had to lift it up, and
underneath
it's
the blue
resting
wire.
against my jumper.
There you
Alright.
go.
You're going to time code this?
No. We're just going to move on. I'm
Oh.
not going to save you from the embarrassment of having appalling mic
No,
discipline.
I'm so embarrassed.
You should be.
I'm
Not going to go the way
putting
you
more clothes
think.
on.
All right. I think
you, Marc.
we're being I think we're being misled by the similarities here.
Okay.
Casey pointed out that it looks like it starts with the First Order attacking the Resistance base, with Walker-style things. Now, I do think...
I think that's the end.
I think
that's
the
near
end.
the end.
Yeah, I think that's the third act action set piece, is that raid on Crate with the Walkers. And there is an attack, I think, on the Resistance base at the start, but that's going to be the stuff we didn't get in the original trilogy between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back, them leaving one base to go to another. We're going to see that. So I do think that the similarities between Empire Strikes Back and The Last Jedi are somewhat superficial at the moment. And to me, I'm with Casey completely. I gave The Force Awakens a free pass on its similarities. I think I'm probably going to do the same with The Last Jedi, because I understand where we fall in the storytelling cycle. The middle chapter, I think, is inevitably going to have some similarities dramatically. And because we're in the Star Wars universe, again, there will be similarities. It's not going to bother me.
I have a slightly different take on that. I still like Force Awakens quite a bit. It's in my, top 8 Star Wars movies, which I think it's 5th or 6th. I haven't revisited my order in a while, so I need to revisit it at some point. But Rogue One is much higher because I like it, because it's
in your
bold
top
and
10,
different.
Rob, for sure.
Yeah, for definite. And I'm actually less willing to give. I'm going to be less forgiving if this is very similar to Empire, because
You go, girlfriend.
because thanks. Don't need encouragement, but fair enough. I'm gonna have less of a not tolerance is the wrong word, because ultimately I'm sure I'm gonna still enjoy the movie, but I'm gonna be less forgiving of blatant and brazen similarity, because one, they know they've got a bankable property, and if they don't know, they should, because it's very obviously a merchandiser's dream, because they made their money back before the movie came out in merchandise connected to the movie. So, if they're under the impression like, we have to still play it safe because we're not sure if it's going to be successful, get over yourselves, honestly. With that said, like I said, I'm sure I will still enjoy, I can still enjoy a movie, even if it's very similar to another movie I've seen. Otherwise, I wouldn't enjoy James Bond movies, because they're all there's a lot of common themes in those movies, and I still enjoy a fair few of them. There's a few I don't like as much, but then they tend to just be crap. For Your Eyes Only, for example. There you go. That's just an example off the top of my head. I'm perfectly, perfectly willing to enjoy a movie, even if it's similar to another one I like a lot. At the same time, I'm going to be less forgiving of similarities, just because, one, they know they can make money off this. They don't need to play it safe. So I want them to take a bit of a risk because of how good Rogue One was when they did. And two, I think I touched on this before about the legends and the dissolution of the old canon and the legend status of everything. If you're going to do that, you have to tell better stories, because otherwise it's kind of a waste.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're just going to tell, if the reason they're telling good stories is because it's the stories we've heard before, it doesn't feel enough to me. Like they need to challenge themselves, because otherwise they're just comfortable.
Yeah.
And that way kind of mediocrity lies. And that's all I got to say about that.
I agree with you. I think that a good point, well made. Paul?
Thanks, Trench.
Well, this is multifaceted, isn't it? Basically, yes, it's the second act, so we're going to be hit by a slightly darker tone. Darker tone is immediately going to be familiarised or identified with Empire Strikes Back and so on. Plus, if it turns out to be a darker tone and a much, much better film, people are also going to compare it with Empire Strikes Back and how that had a darker tone.
And was a better film than the previous one, yeah?
Best film, but that said, I'm not going to accuse everyone of having short memories, but it was pointed out many, many, many times by the actors, the cast, the crew, and everything, that Ryan's taking us in a direction that no one's experienced before. So I'm going to trust that. I think we're all in for a rather enjoyable shock here.
I hope so. I hope you're absolutely right, Paul.
If I'm wrong, I'm going to be really disappointed.
Yeah,
because they have the ability to learn their lessons from TFA. And we've been told that this is. I mean, some people have said, "Crack, we have no idea." And Mark Hamill himself, what he came out with, Hamill himself, but he came out with about the character alone was enough. So I think we're going to be in for a very, very pleasant shock.
I hope you're right, Paul.
Do you think it might be similar?
Mark Hamill was.
No, go on, Steve.
I was going to say, unless Mark Hamill was disappointed because they told him to play his part just like Yoda in Empire, then that would be good. And that's what he was disappointed about.
And he was walking around on his knees, talking backwards.
But we've established in the previous films that Luke can talk in normal sentences. Like, no, we want you to just talk like a complete muppet.
So, disappointed am I?
Yeah.
Paul, do you think your potential disappointment with The Last Jedi might be similar to The Force Awakens, where when you came out, I was like, do you know what? That's a retread. And even afterwards, when we did our reaction recording, you kind of said, I wanted more. It wasn't enough. But now, on revisits, you've grown to love that film, right?
I've certainly grown more attracted to it. I take it at face value, and I almost decided to attach it from the general Luke Skywalker story. Completely. If you just take it as a fun film, it's all right. Yeah, it's pretty good. But it's not. It's part of a trilogy. It's got a story attached to it. And we all waited many, 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 many years and millions of dollars later and man hours and so on. And it was a poor step. It was a poor step forward. But there you go.
Yeah. Stephen, do you want to elaborate on your thoughts? I mean, yes. How are you going to feel about it? Yes. Probably you could expand on that a tad.
Well, everyone's kind of said my bits now, but yeah, I'd like Paul to be right, and they've tricked us and duped us with all the trailers that I've heard of anyway. And
of course, because you haven't seen them.
How would you know?
Yeah, you haven't seen them all,
exactly.
have you?
I'm getting a vibe. I mean, you described the scenes.
It's the endoscope.
Scenes, haven't we?
That'll hopefully make sense.
Head to the end credits, kids.
No, don't.
I think it would be clever if they rused us.
I think
but I don't think they have.
I think they have, Steve. I think that, and that to me, I'm confident now that you're going to be surprised when you watch this film how different it is. And
they did with the first film, with the first trailers.
Yeah.
What do you mean, Paul?
Well, there's elements in TFA trailer-wise that weren't in it at all.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Like, what's that? What's that? What's this? What's that?
Stuff.
We might be looking at these trailers completely out of linear context. Absolutely and utterly completely out of linear context. For all we know, her leaning backwards might be one of the opening bloody scenes. Excuse my French, but you never know. It's not the case. I know.
Could be a Force vision.
Yeah.
Like a Breaking Dawn Part 2 cop out.
It could be. It could be her relaxing.
Still unhappy about that.
She couldn't find the sofa, so she sort of laid on nothing.
Yeah.
Doubt that.
Ultimately, so my feeling on it, to kind of touch back on what we were talking about, is, undeniably there are similarities between TFA and A New Hope. Now, the question is how much they bother you. Because if they don't bother you, then more power to you. You can love that film beyond all measure. If they bother you a bit, like they do with me, you can still like the film, but it's going to lose a little something for, originality points, as it were. Ultimately, I can still say, even if you knock in your head, you've got a score and you knock 5% off or 10% off because it's a little bit derivative, there's still 90 points there.
Yeah.
There's still a ton of enjoyment to be had from a movie that's safe and warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, it doesn't lose a lot elsewhere.
I'm just hoping that's not the case here, because there's no, before you can understand it, excuse is the wrong word, but there was an excuse to do it with Force Awakens. There is no excuse to do it with Last Jedi. It's a bankable property. It's predicted to do one of the biggest box office opening weekends in history. They don't need to play it safe. Everybody is invested. Everybody wants to know what happens next.
Yeah, I mean, it might even do Justice League numbers. You never know. We could hope.
Yeah. Who can say? Maybe we'll get a 3-hour uncut Last Jedi Ultimate Edition, and that'll be awesome.
The VIP group might spend that much. Might spend the box office opening of the Justice League in the first weekend of Last Jedi alone.
Hardly possible. But yeah, that's my take on it. Is the idea that there's no similarity is, to me, it's kind of daft. But at the same time, the idea that makes it a terrible movie is also daft.
Yeah. Are you talking about Force Awakens still? Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of like I say, just circling back to sort of the overall kind of theme. It will disappoint me if it's derivative. If it's a carbon copy, I'll be really disappointed. But at the same time, it doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to be an enjoyable movie, because ultimately, even my least favorite Star Wars movie, which is Attack of the Clones, for those keeping score, is still tons of fun, and I can watch it any time and enjoy it. But I'm well aware it's not without its flaws, and it's my least favorite of the movies. But they still hold this incredible place in my heart.
Yeah, there has to be one that's your least favorite.
Yeah, that's just how
by definition. Yeah.
I thought you meant there has to be a heart in there somewhere, Rob.
Yeah, well, that too.
All right.
You can but try and find it.
Casey, great question. I think you've got quite a broad spectrum of answers from us all there. One of us is thinking clearly, and these three aren't. What? Sorry, Paul?
Did we give broad answers there, really?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
One of us is thinking clearly.
Yeah. Speeder bike. We haven't had one of those in a while.
That's Rob's bottom.
No, I think we all come at this thing from a slightly different perspective. Me being the most generous and forgiving of all of us, and you guys.
That's pretty standard.
Yeah, and you guys being having some well-rounded positions.
Shoulders?
Yeah, that's it. Well-rounded shoulders. Okay, thank you very much, Casey. Look forward to hearing from you next week. No pressure, but it is your corner. It's your responsibility to fill it. Okay, we're going to get into some Star Wars news now, and it's all Last Jedi, and it's all potentially spoilerific. So, especially towards the end. So, if you are trying to stay dark on this film, now would be a good time to leave us and perhaps come back after the films come out. Steve,
you're actually going
at the bottom of these show notes after the Empire stuff, the Empire covers. You definitely might want to consider not being on for that.
Oh yes, okay.
Because there are some, there are some things in there that can blow your hair back, I think. But
we've only got a couple more weeks now.
Well, I'll be all right.
Yeah, you're
where am I going up to then? Because I don't want to scroll down too far.
After the Empire covers, there's stuff after that you might find.
I'll bow out then. Okay.
All right. Okay.
So
well, let's.
I can see Korean poster art. Can I go to that?
Yeah. You should be all right with that. There's some of the descriptions. Yeah, you might. We'll get there in a second.
Has anyone else got really pixelated pictures?
No.
As you go further down.
No.
All good.
What about Marc's
they're all fine.
fetish library? Is that all right?
Mine's looking good. I'm not sure. I'm not screen sharing. All right, let's move into this stuff then. So, the Topps trading cards, the old bubblegum cards we used to get physically, now they're all digital. They revealed a couple of characters from The Last Jedi. They are the Canto Bight Police. Now, the only reason I popped this in here was because, I mean, for a start, it's a pretty cool image. I especially like the alien. He's looking really quite intimidated. The reason I popped this in there is because off the set, we were getting reports around about the time we heard the reports of Luke arriving, Kylo Ren arriving on Ahch-To to fight Luke and Rey. We got a similar report that the Canto Bight, there were actors on set who were Canto Bight police, and they were wearing helmets. Cue Steve. and they had CBPD written on them in English. Okay. And in this image of the trading card, you can see the police officers on the right, in case you weren't sure. And they have illuminated badges on their helmets. Haven't you missed him, kids? And that is Orabesh, and that actually says CBPD. So I'm just saying that some of the observations on set were really quite accurate, and we did panic at the time. So why are they doing the CBPD? Why is that all a thing?
Yeah.
But it's obviously
probably just a reference marker or something.
I think it is. I think it's so that whoever's doing the crowd direction, like the assistant director or second unit director or something, would need to know who's who. So it's literally just there as a reference, so you can say, move those people there, move those people there.
Especially if they've got anybody with sort of similar looking outfits.
Yeah.
You think they're saying to that guy, I don't care how poor you are, you can't mime here.
Are you pretending to be a statue? That's what
I was thinking he might be Space Fonz.
But where can I put this invisible fridge?
Yeah.
I'm trapped in this box.
I was literally just carrying 2 ice cream cones and somebody's robbed me, and he's just doing a little reenactment. I think these guys look pretty cool. Do you not think they look like the Attack Commander?
A little bit, yeah. They've got a kind of 70s sci-fi vibe to them.
Yeah, they really do.
What's it called? The first Total Recall. That kind of
that sort of thing. Yeah,
Earth?
Like a sort of
the early 80s.
Late 70s, early 80s kind of sci-fi vibe.
The fray of the helmet's almost kind of Shogun.
Yeah, very much so.
Oh, yeah, very samurai, yeah.
And these guys, they fly around on those little speeders. They're like really spindly little speeders.
Well, the ones they're holding.
No, they're not they're not that little. We've seen them before in some images of Canto Bight at the casino and things like that. Really, it's going to look really cool, this environment, I think. So I thought I'll throw that in there just to show how accurate some of the on-set reports were now that we've seen the finished article from the movie.
Very good.
Okay, moving on. There was a report this week. Marc Airy covered it on the Toy Box. Actually, I think it was the end of last week he covered it on the Toy Box. A new image has surfaced. It's in the show notes if you want to download it. And it's more helmet talk, Steve. A new image of Hot Toys Darth Vader helmet, last seen in The Force Awakens, has been doing the rounds as part of the Last Jedi promotional materials from Hot Toys. And basically it's a life-size replica of the melted helmet that Kylo Ren has in the padded room in The Force Awakens. So we're going to be able to purchase this at some point. Really nice thing. But do we think we're going to see this again in Last Jedi? Is that why this thing's out on the tour now?
I think it's entirely plausible. I would say we shouldn't read too much into it because
with all the red behind it, possibly.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say read too much into it because we have seen in the past toys that are released as part of a film run which aren't of characters in the movie.
Constable Zuvio, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm not even talking about ones who are supposed to be. I'm talking about, old characters being re-released under the new cards and having different takes on them and stuff. So, but it makes perfect sense for it to be in there because, it's not been destroyed. We know this because it was on Kylo Ren's.
It's on the finalizer.
Kylo Ren's chamber on the finalizer. So there's every reason to suggest we might see it again because logic would dictate he probably heads back there at some point because that's where he probably lives.
I would think.
Or spends a fair bit of time, if nothing else.
If he doesn't live on Mustafar. And that's just his whip. So I try and get all incredibly street and I just get it all wrong. I want this life-size replica, please, and thank you.
All
right, moving on. So another set of cards. This is Top Trumps. Remember them?
Mm-hmm.
They have revealed a little bit about 3 characters from the Last Jedi: Paige Tycho, Tully Lintra, and a character called Nix. Now, these characters are all part of the squadron defending Dakar, as far as I can understand. So Paige is a gunner in one of the Resistance bombers.
Yep.
Tully Lintra is an A-wing pilot, like a commander, the head of the A-wing squadron. helping to escort the bombers into place with Poe Dameron and his X-Wing. And Nix is also in the bomber, like some sort of trigger man in the bomber. And they've revealed a lot about these characters. They're putting them front and centre. It's a little bit like The Walking Dead, I think. When you get a character that suddenly is centre focus in an episode, you think, oh, great, about time they get... Oh, they're dead. I don't think these characters are going to make it out the first reel of this movie.
No, I think you're right.
And
we know... We're almost certain that Paige doesn't, because that's part of the motivation for Rose.
That's been our assumption, from quite early on, isn't it? That we're assuming that that Rose is motivated into action by the sacrifice of Paige, or the loss of Paige, and possibly her bomb. And there is some evidence in the TV spots that have been making their way out recently, like Poe seeing a huge explosion from the cockpit of the X-Wing. Yeah, a massive explosion.
He sees an explosion from the side window of one of the flagships as well.
We see something. I thought that might have been Kylo's silencer, but that I think might have been editing in the trailer.
Maybe.
But I think we see in the behind the scenes reel, we see Paige dropping through a munitions silo on the bomber. Like there's all these big round bombs. I think that's Paige.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I'm convinced that she gives Rose a necklace, and part of Kelly Marie Tran's wardrobe in this movie is that necklace, and it's supposed to be quite significant to her. So I think she gives her the necklace. Maybe it's a family thing. So you keep hold of that while I go and kick some butt. Then they go and they all die, and then she's like, oh, I'm going to have to sell this on Star Wars eBay, on Space eBay. But yeah, I think Paige's death will motivate Rose into action. I think Tali Lintra and this character Nix, they will all be wiped out in the opening moments of the movie, and putting them up front and centre on this top trumps card is a bit of a thing, a bit of a distraction for us. That image you just sent through, Paul, amazing. So yeah, that's all. That's my prediction for the start. I think it's them trying to lay down some cover fire for the Resistance as they escape from Dakar. And blood will be spilt, and that will motivate Poe and certainly propel Rose onto her story. And yes, the actress that plays Paige Tycho is incredibly beautiful. All right, also beautiful are the new Empire covers.
Really are.
They are cool. We've got a light side and dark side edition, and on the show notes we've got the image on the left is a baggie. And inside the baggie is the cover, the magazine with the cover, which is an image on the right of both light side and dark side editions.
They're colour coding them now.
Yes, indeed. And you also get a 40th anniversary magazine and an exclusive art print from Lucasfilm inside this collection. So I'm going to be picking mine up, I think, probably tomorrow. These are really cool. Rey's image on the front of Empire is, I think, probably my favourite piece of artwork that's come out from the last Jedi.
Those two covers are really brilliant.
Yeah, and
really, really brilliant.
That one of Rey is our cover art on this episode.
Okay, cool.
This week, really
She reminds you of Qui-Gon Jinn from Phantom Menace
on the left. Yeah,
the very left one.
Yeah.
It might be the mullet type.
It is definitely the hair.
And the hair helps a lot.
She looks incredibly Jedi, doesn't she? There, just the subtle changes in her wardrobe and the lightsaber.
Yeah, she's beautiful, doesn't she?
And also Kylo looks badass.
Yeah, I would.
I think that's fair enough. Nobody would hold it against you.
I think that's a terrifying insight. All right, that's the Empire covers this week.
Bad boys.
There's an image further on from Empire as well. It's a new look at Snoke, and also there's an image that's come out just today which didn't make the show notes. It's a new look at DJ, all part of the Empire coverage. The DJ thing is unlike anything we've seen in Star Wars before. I think that the ship he's on looks incredible. Very, 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 very shiny and new. All right, let's move on to the Korean poster art, South Korean poster art for The Last Jedi. So it's that red and grainy, gritty, sort of grungy crate feel. Again, but this what's written on the poster art that's kind of interesting. And
should I be watching this?
This might.
I think the second half might be.
Yeah, there's something.
Blurb.
there is something in there, Steve, that you might want to at least sort of duck out for, and we can bring you back in. I will warn you when we get to it. But these character posters. Do you want to just jump off?
I was going to say, after this point, is everything a spoilery?
After the image of Snoke, yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Oh, Steve, get over it. They're all marry a llama and die.
What? Oh, you've ruined it.
All right, they don't actually die, but they do marry llamas.
That is not intended as a factual statement. We don't know that is a thing.
All right, well, I'll bomb out then.
You're going to jump off, are you, mate? Steve, do you want to let people know where you can be found between episodes? Do your sign off here if you're going to be leaving us?
Yeah, you can find me in the very depths of your soul if you look hard enough. But also, if you can't find me there, on Stephen_Ware on Twitter or on YouTube and Twitter, Wild About Nature. Thank you very much. I'm actually going to get people going on there now because it's not the end of the show where they haven't all turned off. Yay!
All right.
Thanks for that.
Thank you for joining us this week, Steve.
All right, guys.
Bye,
I'll
mate.
speak to you later, mate.
You take care of yourselves.
You too, mate.
And
Speak
each
to you
other.
soon.
Okay.
Bye, mate.
Bye.
Goodbye. All right, we can move forward now and not worry about spoiling things for Stephen, seeing as he's gone. All right, so these posters, the South Korean posters, they have descriptions for each character, and they are as follows. Rey, the heroine who's found her hidden power, down the back of the sofa. Kylo Ren, the authority of the First Order who longs for absolute evil. Now, I think something was lost in translation here. I think Kylo's description, I've seen it somewhere in English, in copy somewhere. It's First Order Enforcer. And I think that's probably what's gotten mistranslated here. So it's Kylo Ren, First Order Enforcer, which is nice to know that he's kind of like the pit bull, almost like Vader was for Palpatine. He is the big bad, the muscle, if you like, for Snoke. Luke Skywalker, the only surviving Jedi. Finn, the soldier who escapes the First Order. It says the Empire, but that's a mistake, and joins the Resistance. Poe, ace pilot of the Resistance. Leia, head of the Resistance, and Kylo Ren's mother. So not a great deal revealed in those descriptions, other than the Kylo Ren First Order Enforcer. Getting back, it's the next stuff that is somewhat revealing. So the copy that's just underneath the images reads as follows: the collision of good and evil, light and darkness, new destiny versus destiny of the past. It is the age of the First Order, the ruthless force of evil that has taken over the galaxy. The Resistance, led by General Leia, sends Rey to Luke, hero of the past, in order to find the last hope that will light the spark of victory. The last hope. That's cool, right? Echo of the New Hope. Through Luke, Rey finds her special power sleeping within her and unexpectedly communes with Kylo Ren, authority of the First Order. So First Order Enforcer, who will become light, who will become the darkness. The great battle over the destiny of good and evil begins. So she unexpectedly communes with Kylo Ren. Rob, you called this.
I did. And I still maintain that it's true. And I've kind of evolved that thinking a little further as well, if you want to hear it.
Yeah, this is from the TV spot Tempt. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think when she first starts having visions, he's appearing in them. And she doesn't understand why, but it's making her cross, making her angry because she doesn't like him. Because understandably, she's quite unhappy with him because he killed Mentor.
Yes.
So he killed her. Kind of, she had that sort of Obi-Wan style person, and now she doesn't. And it's Kylo Ren's fault as far as she's concerned. So she sees him in these visions, and she starts getting angry and cracks the rock in her displeasure. And I think over time, throughout the course of the film, that keeps happening. And Luke eventually, no, this is, I can't train you if you can't kind of control that element of it. So she goes, I think by this point she's probably done the swim through the cave. And then when she's tired out and kind of not beaten in terms of, worn. She's kind of worn out, and she doesn't want to do it. And he comes to her again, and he shows her some part of part of history that Luke won't show her for whatever reason.
Yeah, maybe the school.
Yeah, maybe the school. Maybe there's some element of the school he kept secret. But I just think that's where it's going. I think it's, there's going to be some element that Luke's hidden from her, and it might be because she's not ready to fight. She's not ready to face Snoke face to face, and he's keeping her in the dark about some element of it because he knows that her, this kind of not temper, but this temperament will lead her to go and chase him down before she's ready. A bit like Luke, but in a different way, because she's not doing it to, protect her friends necessarily. She's doing it because
it's revenge.
It's revenge, yeah. So he sees that as like, if she goes and especially if it's for revenge, I've lost her. I'm going to lose her to the dark side of the Force, and so he keeps her in the dark. And Kylo eventually, through kind of cajoling, and over the course of time, he wears her down in terms of
kind of breaking her will.
But it's like I say, it's almost just like she's at that point she's annoyed because Luke's turned his back on her, and she goes, "All right, you know what? Fine. What can you show me that's, I don't think you can show me anything that's going to change my mind." And he's like, "Can't I?" And they've almost got this kind of psychometric link, probably caused by the contact they had mentally in Episode 7.
Yeah,
that'll probably be how they explain that one away.
Yeah, that is a really good point.
So I reckon she's going to go off and fight Snoke before she's ready, because Kylo shows her that there's something to it. There's something to it that she's being kept in the dark about, and she's going to resent Luke for it. She's going to want to attack him, and she doesn't. And then she goes off to confront Snoke, at which point Luke says it's not going to go the way you think, and he stays on Ahch-To until Episode 9. And she goes off and fights Snoke and sets up whatever cliffhanger we're going to get for Episode 9.
Kylo could be setting Rey up a little bit, because he's probably thinking Snoke wants the girl brought to him. She could easily replace me, and I'm already out of favour. So if he says to her, "You can go to Snoke and defeat him and end this thing, or you come and I'll join you," and then all he's got to do is see what happens. Either she'll remove Snoke and then the threat to Kylo is taken away, or Snoke will destroy her and then Snoke's new prize is gone. So he could be setting Rey up through those visions, going to be giving her motivation to do stuff that he knows will end up playing out in his favour. Because he's
not going to go the way you think.
Duplicitous little scamp.
Yes. Going to go the way you think,
yeah. What do you think, Paul, about this communion with Kylo Ren? Was that the way you saw that going?
Kind of. I think me and Rob have been on a similar path for the last few weeks, haven't we, with that kind of ideology. But I don't know. I mean, I get the feeling that Kylo is in the process of sort of battling his demons with Leia.
Yeah.
His anger is going to be used to pull her in and over, almost as he could even be using it as a protection mechanism. I'm not entirely sure. It's so hard to tell the way they're playing these two characters, to be completely honest.
It'll be an interesting.
I just got a bong from Steve. I don't know if you guys did.
No, I did.
Okay, I didn't. Sorry.
The dynamic between mother and son in this movie is going to be very interesting to watch.
And I'm wondering if that is going to be what Snoke just does not know what to do with. That's the thing. I've still got that little latch in my mind when we saw the behind the scenes reel. Carrie says, it's about family. And I'm wondering if that whole family bonding situation is going to be not obviously the final winner as such, but it's certainly going to be a hurdle that I'm not entirely sure Snoke can deal with. We'll see, because we know Leia is Force sensitive. Maybe one day we'll actually get an idea of not necessarily what she can do, obviously with a lightsaber and with powers and so on and so forth, but is there another facet to her that we may well learn a bit more about?
Yeah, well, we've seen
to view and so on. I'm just wondering.
Her abilities so far, we've seen, she seems to be quite empathic. So we know that, there's that whole thing about the memory of her mother when she's discussing with Luke. She has vague memories of her mother, but I think that's less about actual memories of her mother and more about a retained sort of imprint through the Force of Padme.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
And if she's an empath, that could be the way she tracked Luke on Bespin when he was hanging from that thing. She was connected to him.
Yeah.
So
there's definitely a bonding. What's a thread?
It's a
permanent thread between them.
It's a very maternal and sort of nurturing ability as well, isn't it? So you'd have like Luke almost being the warrior, and his application of the Force services that. And if Leia's more of an empath, her application of the Force could, as I do that, might help her break through to Kylo Ren in some way, in a similar way perhaps to the way he's trying to break through to Rey. You could see Leia trying to probe and get into Kylo using her Force ability, which is, what we just
She's had
outlined.
many years of mental experience with diplomacy.
Yeah, well, yeah, she of
has,
course,
so
yeah.
You don't, not any dummy can just go ahead and do so.
So it could be quite an interesting exploration of Leia's Force abilities, in as much as we expect that to be telekinesis and blue ghosting and lightsabers. But no, it could be something we haven't really explored yet, which is the Jedi are multifaceted. We've seen the warriors, now let's see something else, something that is a little bit more maternal and services that character and would indeed service the story, which is Ryan's sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, she hasn't had a chance to. She's had her moments, but she's never really shone since New Hope.
There's
bits and pieces.
But she's had moments. That's my point. I'm just wondering if we've got a situation coming where she is going to be the pinnacle element. Only her could do this.
Yeah,
and
9 was going to
She's
be
going
it.
to show us that she can.
Did you talk about how the possibility that we touched on it before, that during the sort of back and forth between Kylo and Leia in the trailer, she might be communicating with him through the Force?
Yeah, I was just saying how she might be using her sort of empathic abilities to try and break through.
I caught the end of that discussion. I wondered if I'd.
Yeah, I wasn't being specific about that scene, but yeah, you're right. Okay. Yeah.
It makes sense, I think.
I've just seen Paul's comment in the chat. I can't believe some of the things that get said in there. All right, let's move on to. They're great little insights from those Korean posters. They're awesome stuff. But in Empire, they have this incredible image that I've been staring at for the past 5 minutes of Supreme Leader Snoke.
You want to see what I'm seeing?
No.
Easy.
You're going to.
Go on then.
I mentioned that the image is weird for me.
Okay.
So I'm going to send it to you. You're going to go, oh yeah, we all believe you now, Paul. You are cool and you are the best in the whole gang. That's what I've got.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is rough.
I still would, don't get me wrong.
That is definitely rough. You might want to download the show notes again, Paul.
I did. This is the second download of the show notes.
Rob, yours are all right, are they?
Yeah, mine are fine.
Okay.
That photo is awesome.
It is a very cool photograph, Paul. You might be able to Google that Empire image of Snoke, because it really is very, very cool. And it is not... I'm getting something off this image that I hadn't really imagined from Snoke before.
Ooh, I can see it now.
With the jaw line, he seems much more masculine and much more intimidating
Good God,
than
that looks
what
like
we've seen
Peter
before.
Cushing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was been a lot of speculation about that in the early days before it was absolutely categorically out.
No, I don't believe for 1 minute it is, but that really doesn't look like.
Yeah. I heard a great speculation the other day
about
that he's a will that's been cast out from the rest of the pack.
Yeah, like a fallen angel.
He resents the Force as a result.
Yeah, I put something out on the Daily, I think it was, a couple of days ago about how I was starting to entertain the thought that Snoke could be one of Palpatine's pet projects. Like he'd set up, like obviously his primary project was Anakin, but what he'd started doing was playing people off against each other. So we know that he had the diplomats and the Moffs and all that sort of stuff. He had those all infighting. But in the comic books at the moment, he's just set up the Inquisitorius. Now, we know that the Inquisitors go on into the Ahsoka book and into Rebels and things like that, and the Grand Inquisitor and all that. We've seen those on TV. We're getting introduced to them now, and we're getting an idea of what Palpatine's motives are behind creating the Inquisitorius. Now, I wondered whether or not that's not isolated for him, the Inquisitorius. He could have another bunch of Force sensitives that he keeps them like little cells apart from each other, so he can set them on little tasks and rotate them into power as and when a group fall. And I wondered whether Snoke might have been one of a number who were destroyed during the fall of the Empire, and somehow he's managed to survive this long, and that's what's driving him. You know, a loyalty to his Emperor, a loyalty to his Empire. And I also wondered whether, you know, that calling the organisation, for want of a better phrase, the First Order, is kind of a nod to Palpatine's vision, which we know at least went up to Order 66. So at some point he had a First Order, Second Order, all the way up to Order 66, was the First Order sort of domination.
Oh, God, how have we never put that together?
Because you haven't listened to this episode yet, because it didn't come out till Monday. But yeah, it's
not true.
So that's kind of, I wonder whether or not he's some sort of Palpatine acolyte. You know, he was part of a cell that Palpatine had set up. He's Force sensitive. He was being developed. Palpatine might have said, like, I've utilised the Sith doctrine to get me where I am, but now I'm not going to be restricted by its thing. I'm going to have many Force capable people around me. He's sent people out to find the children of the Force, didn't he, so that he can train and develop these people, build like an army. I think Snoke could have been one of a number that fell, and now he's being driven by sort of trying to avenge the loss of his master, avenge the loss of the Empire, avenge the loss of a future he could have had. Like the First Order is just, you know, this is stage one for him as he tries to follow Palpatine's plan. But, you know, he's only interested in power for himself.
Yeah. That's kind of... Sorry, go on.
Yeah, he's not necessarily sort of driven to recreate the Empire in any way. He's just like, no, I've got the big seat now, and this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because isn't that in the Aftermath trilogy? There's, you know, the beginnings of the First Order kind of start there.
Yeah, and there's some of it sort of hinting at in Bloodline as well, isn't there? About this militia that starts to build up. So
behind the scenes,
and we know that you know, when the Empire fell on it wasn't all day one. Everyone packed up and goes home, and there's just a bunch of empty stormtrooper armor everywhere. There are these little cells that maintained their own pockets of Imperial dominion, and he could have been attached to one of them. The scars could have been, you know, what happened during those battles, and he's managed to claw himself back to and rebuild himself in the subsequent years.
Yeah.
But Andy Serkis goes on to describe Snoke a little bit in Empire. He says, Snoke is bloody dark. He's way darker than Palpatine. He said he's riddled with osteoporosis, so his body is twisted like a corkscrew. He's incredibly damaged, so there's this bizarre vulnerability about him. But beneath that vulnerability is an intense hatred. He's definitely not a Sith, but is certainly at the darker end of the Force. Without giving too much away, that begins to unfold a little in this one. So, I mean, if he was a Force... A lot of this stuff that I've been talking about, like the Inquisitors, they were Jedi Temple guards, they were former Jedi that had been brought over by Sidious at the point that Jedi fell. They were the ones that came around and said, "Oh, let's be a party gang." So I wonder whether or not, you know, this guy had latent Force abilities, or maybe he had significant Force abilities when he became a part of whatever he was back in the Empire days, and that's what he's that's what he's modelling this thing on. But yeah, I think there's something between the First Order and Palpatine's orders. You know, I think there's something there.
Yeah.
Paul, what do you think of that breakdown of Snoke?
I don't know. I'm actually trying to go down a far more sinister path. I mean, looking at him, I'm almost wondering if he's some kind of regenerated situation gone wrong.
Yeah,
I don't know. You know, along the whole.
I've heard resurrection.
How Anakin possibly came about, and so on. I'm wondering if he's almost some regenerated experiment that went wrong and it's backfired. I don't know. It's something interesting there.
Yeah, I like the idea that he may have been a chosen one, like a product of the Force, much like Anakin was. We could speculate that Rey might be. I like the idea that he may have been one of those. Whether or not it's manipulation by somebody else, another Force user manipulating midichlorians, and it went horribly wrong, and that's why he's like this. I think that's a kind of a really cool idea, that this is something that's gone really, really bad. I also like the idea that he might want a body jump. That's the dark and weird of it all. I think if there's a chance that he's looking for a host to jettison this broken body and take up shelter in another form, Kylo might have seemed like the best bet, and now Rey might seem like, I know where I'd prefer to live. Should we move on to Rolling Stone magazine?
Is it all magazines this week?
There's a lot of stuff, because this is where they start to the embargo on some of these stories starts to fall away, doesn't it? On the they wouldn't have told this a year ago, so on the run up to the movie, they're getting a lot more free with the comments they can make. But there's a lot of stuff that came out in this Rolling Stone issue. Great cover, by the way. And Matt Keegan pointed out that some of these blocks of text are in very interesting places, like over Luke's, where his lightsaber would be.
U2's Brilliant Return?
Yeah, not necessarily that. But where it says Rock Surprise Heroes, underneath that is where Luke's lightsaber would be, wouldn't it?
Okay.
So maybe there's something on his belt that this
maybe
text is hiding.
It. Yeah. Could be.
So, and Matt pointed that out. I thought that was quite insightful.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So Rian Johnson talks about working on Star Wars. I've lifted this whole thing out of Rolling Stone, so I'll just read it as it would appear in the magazine. It says, overall, Johnson enjoyed what seems like an almost unfathomable level of an autonomy in shaping The Last Jedi story. He says no one dictated a single plot point. He simply decided what happens next. He's baffled by fans who are concerned by the idea that they're making it up as they go along. The truth is, Ryan says, stories are made up. Whether it's somebody made this whole thing up 10 years ago and put it on a whiteboard, and we'll have to stick to that, or whether it's organically finding it as we move forward. It doesn't mean it's any less thought is being put into it. So it's a really nice sentiment there, isn't there, that is quite sobering, actually, because we do sometimes, as fanboys with well-established headcanon, we do get caught up in this thing like this should have been carved in stone decades ago to mean anything, and the fact that JJ and Lawrence can wander around Paris talking into an iPhone and craft a story, and the fact that Ryan just turns up and says, oh yeah, and then this, and then they did this, that's kind of less valuable to us as hardcore fans than it perhaps should be. So I like what he's saying there. What do you guys read into Ryan's comments?
I'm reading the back end again.
I don't think there's anything especially there. I do like the fact that he's been given autonomy. That's the main thing I take away from it. He's been given freedom to explore the story.
Yeah, even the little those 3 words, four words, a single plot point. Well, knowing he had more or less carte blanche, is that one of a better term, on everything?
Yeah.
That could be very, very, very interesting, because it's nice. Sometimes it's nice when somebody's got a particular goal. Once 2 or 3 people come on board, that goal gets shifted. That target moves. You get a successful end point possibly, but if this guy's been given absolute carte blanche on continuing the whole journey on his own, and he's managed to do that, then again there could be something very, very special lying ahead.
Yeah, I agree. I really like that as well. I like the amount of freedom he seems to have been given. I like that it is what we expect Lucasfilm to be, an independent sort of spirit. Storytellers are welcomed in, and then they're given every support they need to craft the story that they want to tell. And it isn't what we've suspected since the summer, when there's been all this all the directorial musical chairs. It isn't this thing where they show up and they say, nope, you're going to do this, this and this, otherwise it's the highway.
Yeah, he's actually basically openly saying that it's not like that.
It's not like that. He was saying
I guess
it all
it's
along.
not like that if you cut the mustard. It's as simple as that. So
yeah, it is kind of, I mean, yeah, I agree to a point. It is like that if you're a collaborative filmmaker that can show up and bring your A game and tell a story.
Is it, or is it just as simple as if they like what you're doing? Doesn't have to be, I mean, obviously the collaborative thing is, it's about almost like a team fit.
Yeah, it is. It seems to me like Ryan needed less course correction, in inverted commas, than some other creators may have needed.
And had they carried on, yeah.
So that's a pleasure for a producer like Kathy, is that she hasn't got to worry about what they're doing. We know from Lord and Miller's comments last week that they'd come into the project with a very different idea than Lucasfilm. So obviously Ryan's turned up and he's on the same wavelength as Lucasfilm, so they just think, well, we can just let him go. And he's done it, and he's produced a product. Now, they obviously didn't have enough confidence in Phil Lord and Chris Miller to allow them just to go. Or maybe they did have confidence, allowed them just to go. And it wasn't until someone said, excuse me, this doesn't feel right, that they actually looked at it and thought, oh no, we can't give them the autonomy because they've misunderstood the brief.
Or they just want to take it in a different direction than what we have in mind.
I read into their comments that we put on the show last week was that it was misunderstood. They thought they'd stated their position clearly. Lucasfilm thought they'd stated their position clearly, and suddenly the two creative entities were at different ends of a scale. They had very different visions of what they were doing. That doesn't mean that Lord and Miller thought, we know what they want, but we're going to do our thing. And it doesn't mean Lucasfilm just rubbed their hands together and thought, well, they're on the same page as us, let's move on to the next thing. It just means that they went in, both thought the other understood intentions, and they clearly didn't. Well, in this case with Ryan, it seems to be the opposite. That everyone was on the same page. He got it completely, and then he was allowed to tell the story he wanted. And I think that's very encouraging, because like I was just saying to Paul, when you BRB'd, Rob, it's the Lucasfilm that I've always wanted to see. It's the indie film company that's supporting creatives and giving them what they need to make their films, and I find that quite intriguing.
It's good as long as it's not, as long as that's kind of adhered to consistently. If it's just oh, we're gonna support people who want to tell the stories they want to tell, as long as
the stories
they do this, and this. Yeah, exactly. As long as they do this, and this. No, it has to do this, and they can't do that. That's not quite the same thing. It's a bit of.
I think it's the first. I think the first half, yes. The second half, no. I think it is. We'll give you freedom as long as you want to tell the same stories we want to tell. I think that's very much the case. I don't think it's so much the second part that you have to, from what Ryan said here, you have to do this and you have to do that. That doesn't seem to be, maybe the first condition needs to be met in order for the second condition to disappear. But if you show up and you're happy to tell the story, they want you, the types of stories that Lucasfilm are interested in telling, then fine, they won't write the script for you. But if you want to tell the types of story they're interested in telling, then you can go and do what you want. There is none of this, you have to hit that beat, you have to hit that beat. I think the story group at that point are just standing in the corner with a finger to their lips going, no, that's wrong. And when they need to, they're not there sort of laying out signposts like I was saying I wanted them to do earlier. That doesn't seem to be a part of their remit. But also in this edition, we have comments from, a very brief comment from JJ about how Episode 9 could be the end of the Skywalker story completely. This would be in keeping with George's 9-part or 9-part story, 3 trilogies. That was apparently a part of the original vision. JJ says, the magazine says, as far as JJ is concerned, episode 9 will be the end of the Skywalker story. And he says, I do see it that way, but the future is in flux. Now, that's a kind of an impenetrable sentence, really, because it's so very brief and a little bit loose. But I'm wondering if, when this comment was made, Ryan's trilogy had been nailed down, or if it was Ryan's going to make another trilogy, and then they want to decide where they're going to go with it. Do you see what I mean?
So yeah, I do kind of. I think if nothing else, Ryan's trilogy was established to be about a different part of the galaxy, because I reckon that's probably part of his pitch. I want to tell stories, and I want to keep it kind of grounded in Star Wars, but I want to explore a part that we've never seen before. I actually think it's going to be, I've been thinking about this more and more recently, I think it's going to be backwards in time.
Right.
I think he's going to tell us all about some crazy stuff in the past, and then the trilogy is going to show us.
Yeah.
So it's going to be like, Dawn of the Jedi, kind of first people to discover the Force, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Maybe not that story, but that kind of thing. He's going to, we're going to hear about the first, we're going to hear about something that happened a long time ago.
Even longer ago. Yeah.
Yeah, in lore. And then we're going to hear about it in Ryan's trilogy.
Yeah. Paul, that's kind of in keeping with what you've wanted all along, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, kind of works for me. Daisy also got a fair crack at a whip in this edition of
I've just read
Rolling
this.
Stone. Yeah.
So it's actually very interesting.
So Daisy Ridley doesn't want to play Rey after Star Wars Episode 9. I'm going to put a question mark on there as a qualifier.
I think that's wise.
Yeah, I think we drop into, and I put this episode is also going to be entitled No Rey After Episode 9, question mark.
Yeah.
Because I think that I'm going to read our comments in a minute, and then I'm going to put out 2 potential Daisy Ridleys that we're looking at here. And okay. I just want to kind of be fair, because I'm not going to come down either side of this. But this is what this is a position Rolling Stone takes. So as far as Ridley is concerned, the future of Rey is pretty much set. She doesn't want to play the character after the next movie. And Daisy says, no. She says flatly, for me, I didn't really know what I was signing on to. I hadn't read the script, but from what I could tell, it was really nice people involved. So I was just like, awesome. Now I think I'm even luckier than I knew then to be a part of something that feels so like coming home now. So Rolling Stone go on to suggest that it sounds more like a yes than it does a no. But she says again, no. I am really, really excited to do the third thing. No. So she's revealing she's Palpatine's daughter, which I think is an interesting little insight. She says she's really excited to do the third thing and round it out, because ultimately what I was signing on to was 3 films. So in my head, it's 3 films. I think it will feel like the right time to round it out, which is an interesting turn of phrase. And then the magazine asks, how about coming back in 30 years as the has her predecessors, Marc, Harrison and Carrie. And she says, who knows? Harry Carey. She says, who knows? I honestly feel like the world may end in the next 30 years. So if I'm 30, if in 30 years we are not living underground in a series of interconnected cells, then sure, maybe. But again, it's like, who knows? Because the thing I thought was so amazing was people really wanted it, and it was done by people who really love it. So she's I think she's stating a position quite clearly here. No, as far as she's concerned, everything ends for Star Wars for her with Episode 9, as in her contract ends with Episode 9.
Yeah.
So where could this lead us? I'll ask you guys to comment, but I want you to consider 2 things, or 2 other people who came to mind when I was reading Daisy's comments, and how it's not as clear cut as it may first seem. I think Daisy Ridley is potentially either a Christopher Nolan or a Harrison Ford.
Okay.
And this is the argument. Christopher Nolan, when he made Batman Begins, was saying to anyone who would listen, don't know if I want to come back and do another one. Don't know if I've got a story to tell.
Okay.
That puts him in a much stronger negotiating position than saying, can't wait to get stuck into the next one. Because if he rocks up and they say, we'll give you 30 quid to do the next one, what's he going to do? Do you not make the film?
I think he'd still tell them to side off.
Yeah.
And I think he'd be right to.
That is extreme. But, right now, Daisy could be a Christopher Nolan, and she could be playing this game where she's saying, no, I've signed up for 3 films, I'm done after this. So if they come back and say, look, we want to do another trilogy, she can say, show me the money.
Right.
And then they're going to have to shell out and pay these actors what they're worth to continue on. When these, it's like the cast of Friends, isn't it? When this thing becomes a beast, a monster like it has done, a box office money machine, they should get a fair share for what they bring to it. So she could be putting herself in the Christopher Nolan strong negotiating position, or she could be Harrison Ford, who said, I'll make these films because they gave me my start, but I want my story to end definitively there so that I'm done with it. That I have no story responsibilities beyond that point. It's a direct quote from Harrison Ford. He has no heart, has no mama, has no papa. He has no story responsibilities beyond this point. Let's kill him, add some weight to this thing. That was Harrison's position on Han Solo. I saw him years after Return of the Jedi on TV saying, I never want to go back to Han Solo. More Indiana Jones, great, but Han Solo's done.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She might be getting that feeling now that Star Wars is this all-consuming thing. And you can read, if you read in between the lines, some of her comments here, it's almost alluding to that. I had no idea what I was getting into. It could be so big that there's a risk this might overshadow her career. She might end up where Marc ended up.
Mm-hmm.
Which he's had a wonderfully varied career over the years, but he
had to really fight against the
stereotype,
the typecasting,
because these characters cast a long shadow. So she's either a Christopher Nolan or she's a Harrison Ford in my mind. Chaps, what do you think?
Paul, do you want to go first, mate?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm just looking at this. If we're taking the quote verbatim, then it comes down to what I just read. I've read this like 3 times now. But it comes down to the fact that I was really excited to do so, etc., etc. In my head, it's 3 films. I think it will feel like the right time to round out. That is not I am leaving. That is, I think it will probably feel like the right time to round out. But then coming back, who knows? Well, there's a big question mark there. Maybe. Yeah, there's another question mark. It's not a question mark in the quote itself, but maybe it offers a question mark, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think, she's especially saying, look, guys, I'm not doing this. But we can talk later, basically. Yeah, and she's not putting any finality on it at all.
I'm kind of with you to a point. I think her position is basically, I don't even want to think about it until
that's more
the
probably
trilogy finishes. We've
still got work to do.
I really want, what I signed on to is 3 films. My job's not done. Until my job's done, I don't want to think about the next Star Wars thing. Maybe I'll do another one. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll do another trilogy. Maybe I won't. I don't want to think about it until I do the job that I originally signed on for, which is 3 films. That's my take on it.
Yeah, no, that's a really cogent take.
Yeah, I think it is just, let's worry about the ones I signed up for first.
Yeah.
Get my job done. And then we'll see.
Yeah, let's stick the landing on this trilogy.
Yeah.
And then I can definitely see, I don't know what you guys think about this, I can definitely see the appeal for these actors to disappear for 10 years, have varied careers, do some TV work, do some stage work, do some more, like Daisy's starting to move. I think she's going to do something with Doug Liman. I think that's coming up. So she's starting to do these other things like Murder on the Orient. Murder on the Orient Express. I hear there's a sequel to that. Not sure if that was a joke or not. So there's room for these young actors now. They're only 25 years old to go out and really make a mark on Hollywood, like John Boyega just did with Detroit. Like get some real meaty roles under their belt, and then they can come back in 10 years and have the fun again. Have the dessert and come back, and it'll be everybody will welcome them back warmly, because it's been such a long time since we've seen these characters, such a long time since we've seen these actors in this environment again. It'll be a lot like coming back to TFA and seeing these guys again after all those years without it being such a long time.
Yeah.
Everybody gets to win then, don't they? They go off and have their careers. Ryan tells 10 years worth of other stories. You get your standalone movies out there still. So Star Wars is still alive. And then you get that fresh infusion where you get these characters come back, and you get the continuing stories of Finn, Poe, Rey, Kylo Ren, or Ben Solo as he may be by that point. It'll be really cool. It just depends what game she's playing. Is she playing the Nolan game, or is she playing the Harrison Ford game? Because I think they are slightly different.
Yeah,
she's playing the Ridley game.
There's maybe there's a new option in the middle there somewhere. I like it. I love Daisy Ridley. I really do. I just think she's a delight. I've seen her this week on Good Morning America talking. She's just delightful to hear talk, but she's also clearly very focused on what she's representing when she's on these shows as well. She's not. She comes across as a little bit eccentric, like that British sort of eccentric. She's very fun, very funny and light, but you can see she's very capable in the limelight, and she says exactly the right thing. And this, I think, is a very, if not a manicured statement, it's something that she definitely means. She's focused on this answer, that she knows what she's doing here. I just think they're all about it. These new actors, John Boyega and Daisy, I think they're switched on. They know what they're doing, what's in service of their career, but what is respectful to this saga as well at the same time.
Yeah.
Probably the best article I've read so far from The Last Jedi, because it's there's some really like on the money answers in here. Just really spot on stuff in this article. I really liked it.
Nice.
Right, I think we're
the
about
Empire
ready
stuff
to...
comes out tomorrow, doesn't it?
Empire comes out for us tomorrow. Yeah, you can get it. I think you can read it online now.
If you want the glossies and you want the pictures and so on.
I'm going to grab that tomorrow. Yeah, I'll pick that up. I'm going to go light side, I think, for obvious reasons.
You've got to go both, mate. You've always gone both ways.
The balance.
Yeah, not in this one though. It's too risky to go to flirt with the dark side. Too dangerous.
You let Steve on the podcast.
I know. So that's why I know. I speak from a position of authority because I've just had to herd that particular cat. All right, let's wrap this thing up then. So, guys. Do you have anything you want to add to this episode before we wrap things up?
No,
I think that's.
It was a goodie.
It was a good one. I enjoyed this very much. I should. I mentioned this on the Facebook Live before we started recording, that we've kind of laid out the schedule for the next few episodes because we're fast approaching our 100th episode, which I find hard to believe. This is episode 97. So the way things are planned out, if we can hit our schedule, episode 99 should be, at least in part, because Rob, I think you're going to be sitting out, a reaction to the reaction to the Last Jedi episode. But episode 100 will drop on Christmas Day, which is quite bizarre timing.
Yes.
Steve would have you believe that it was planned. It was not. It's a happy accident. But I'm really pleased that our 100th episode, and I've already had a voicemail that's strictly for the 100th episode, and it's very nice.
Oh, cool.
So if you've got anything you want to tell us, be nice. And send that in, and we'll get that into episode 100, which will drop in everyone's iTunes or in your podcatcher on Christmas morning, which is just A happy accident. All right, let's wrap this thing up. So thank you for listening to Talk Star Wars again this week. And thanks, guys, for joining me and Stephen. We had a full house. I'm really pleased with that. You can support what we do here by becoming a member of our Talk Star Wars community over on Patreon. So just head to patreon.com/Talk Star Wars and sign up there. Your support will help us do what we do now, expand our program, and in return you'll get a bunch of exclusive stuff, which are all great, but not as great as the Facebook page. The Facebook group, rather, is just this unique mix of people from around the world who are just incredible Star Wars fans. Great group. I was online with them earlier tonight chatting. They're fantastic. So yeah, go over to patreon.com/Talk Star Wars and check that out. And also don't forget to leave us a 5-star review in iTunes, and you'll get to take advantage of our Ron Burgundy guarantee, which means whatever you write in a 5-star review, it's actually Apple Podcasts now, isn't it? Whatever you write in that review, we will read as long as it's clean. So if you want to promote something like your own blog or podcast, then that's the place to do it. Or if you just wanted to leave a genuine review like Matt did earlier, then you can do so there. You can email us your questions and comments to talkstarwarsinfo@gmail.com, or you can reach out to us on one of our many social channels such as Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and more. But with that said, gentlemen, where can people find you between episodes?
You'll find me at moviescorenews.com.
All right. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at RobWadeVision, and everything I do that's not Talk Star Wars related at emotionally14.com.
And you'll find everything I do at talkstarwars.co.uk, and I'm on Twitter at TalkStarWars. And I'd advise you to head over to StarWarsCommonwealth.com and check out some of our partner shows over there. Everybody's churning out top-notch, high-end Star Wars programming over there. So head to StarWarsCommonwealth.com, check out Tumbling Saber, Generation X-Wing, the Rogue Squadron podcast, the Skyhoppers podcast, the Nerd Room, and San Diego Sabers. Everybody's doing the Lord's work over there, the Sith Lord's work, and all of them deserve a place in your weekly podcast rotation. All right, that's it for episode 97. We will see you next week when we will be 1 week away from The Last Jedi. Have a good one, everybody. It's a movie. I can't tell you what it's about yet because I ain't seen it,
Okay.
but it will soon be here. All right, see you later, everyone. Talk Star Wars is a proud member of the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network. Find us at StarWarsCommonwealth.com alongside
The Tumbling Saber Podcast,
The Generation X-Wing Podcast,
Rogue Squadron Podcast,
The TSW Roundtable,
The Skyhoppers Podcast,
the Nerd Room Podcast,
and San Diego Sabres Radio Podcast.
Head to StarWarsCommonwealth.com. Take your first steps to a larger world.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap.
Right, let's go to our break, and when we come back, we're going to step into Casey's corner. So we will be back momentarily. 58.
Ambry.
19. Yeah, Steve, have you been around for Casey's corner?
No.
No, you haven't, have you?
Casey Affleck.
Yes, it's Casey. It's Casey Affleck.
Yes, he writes in every week. Still.
Yeah.
I
I need to improve my PR image, so I'm going to start writing into an up-and-coming podcast.
Yeah,
Somebody
I
who's
do like
hopefully
Casey Affleck.
in the top 100 TV and films in 3 countries. That's
Ideally,
what he's aimed for.
Uganda.
I think he's I think he's an animal activist as well. So like
Oh, Marc.
He's not.
Joaquin.
He's a human. Hey, you got
yeah.
Joaquin's name right. Sorry, Paul.
I know. I only say it wrong.
The book.
Really?
Yeah, Amazon told Matt.
Really?
Yeah.
When are we going to reveal
Now?
this? Because this is
Oops.
What now? Sorry?
No.
Just a bit. What did you say?
No.
Do you want to talk about it, Paul?
No. Move on.
I'll cut
You're going to
that.
keep it from me?
Yes, because you suck.
We can't really.
You're bad for supporting.
Mark, tell them, but go on mute.
You want me to mute and then say I've just got?
What?
Yeah, I've just got Matt's message. Guys, contextually, you should be able to paste in the details.
I missed the bit where you explained the other bit. So
okay,
yeah.
All right. Well, don't worry about it because we're trying not to jinx. We're trying not to jinx anything.
All right. Well, forget it then. It's fine. I hope it goes well, whatever the hell it is.
Thanks. That was so sincere.
Bitches.
It's my dialysis machine.
I'm going to have to...
Well, I definitely hope it goes well then.
Thank God for Amazon Prime.
Oh.